as a balloon shoots up through the stony ground. There's no room, no space to rent in this town. You're out of luck, and the reason that you had to care, the traffic is stuck, and you're not moving anywhere. You thought you found a friend to take you out of this place, someone you could lend a hand in return for grace. It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like it's a beautiful day. So let it get away on the road.
I don't know, you tell me. Is it possible? Just possible that a song that's only a quarter century old is already overplayed or perhaps overused in certain situations? I mean, yesterday when I started the show, I played a song that was almost 70 years old from the Everly Brothers. You'd think that's the kind of song that may have been repeated again and again and again. But this one, just 25 years ago this day, October the 15th, in 2000, U2 took Beautiful Day to number one on the UK singles chart. It was their fourth UK number one, U2's, on this day in 2000 with, of course, Beautiful Day. I think what happens with that song, you see, is it's just far too easy to use in some sort of celebratory fashion. Am I right, as they say? Or am I right? Anytime you want to celebrate something or talk about how beautiful the day is, you know what I need? I need U2's Beautiful Day. It's kind of like Time of Your Life from Green Day, which will forever, I think, be used as one of those sad and sentimental songs, which it is. But then you hear it every time there's a sentimental occasion. I remember it most vividly from Wayne Gretzky's retirement from the National Hockey League. But I digress. It was just a thought that occurred to me as we played U2's Beautiful Day to start this show on our Wednesday morning, the 15th of October. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much, by the way, for stopping by, spending some of your time with us. Maybe a good time to remind you, you give us 15 minutes of your day, and we will make you an official member of Farwell's Force. We're up to 185 official members. What does official membership give you? A number on the official list of Farwell's Force members. But hey, it's better than a kick in the teeth, isn't it? Drop me an email anytime, mike@570news.com, or when you call in to talk about the various issues we're discussing on the show. Feel free to let Devin, the guy on the other side of the glass, know that you want to be a part of something, because we are a force for good, a force for change, and a force to be reckoned with. That is what Farwell's Force is all about. 185 members strong and counting. You got 15 minutes to tune into this show every day, engage in some conversation. I've been looking forward to starting the show since last night. This is how excited I get to do my job, because last night I got to spend the night with our Kitchener Rangers and 6,000 of you at the Memorial Auditorium watching the Rangers put up their biggest offensive number of the season, a 6-goal outburst, 5 in the second period. I got to watch Jack Pridham score twice and pick up 2 assists. I got to watch Avery Anstis score his first career Ontario Hockey League goal. Those things are always fun when a kid gets his first, right? And so a big win for the Rangers. And while that was happening, oh yes, indeed, while the Rangers were winning 6-1 over their Highway 7 rivals from Guelph, the Toronto Maple Leafs were in action, and they put up a big number themselves, 7 goals in a 7-4 win over the Nashville Predators. And you know what that means, right? When the Leafs score 7, it is highly likely that the greatest hockey player in the world today, Austin Matthews, was in on the scoring. And when Austin Matthews is in on the scoring, you get a little AM on AM in the AM the morning after.
A pass on the wing is gobbled up there by Cowan for Matthews. 2-on-1 with Nyes. Matthews into Nyes. Back to Matthews. Score! Holy mackerel!
Austin Matthews, his initials are AM. This is an AM radio station in the AM part of the day, so you get AM on AM in the AM after the Leafs play and Matthews scores. Did you notice that name that started that play? Easton Cowan, former London Knight, first NHL point for Cowan on that goal from Austin Matthews last night. And oh yeah, by the way, Matthews wasn't done there.
Tavares gets it out. Nyes is to center with an empty net. Pulls it off, sends it off to Tavares in front of the goal. Knocked down and scores! Matthews into the empty net.
Matthews into the empty net. AM on AM in the AM times 2 on this Wednesday morning after the Leafs' big win last night. The Leafs win. The Leafs win. And so too did the Kitchener Rangers. And maybe, just maybe, that does make this a beautiful day after all, doesn't it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. Number 1, Canada's Federal Housing Minister, Gregor Robertson, is in Kitchener today to make a housing announcement. The media conference scheduled to start at 9:15. I say scheduled to start at 9:15 because these things rarely start on time. But anyway, in the next several minutes, Gregor Robertson will lead this media conference this morning, along with local MPs Bardish Chagger, Tim Lewis, and Dominique O'Rourke from Guelph, also to be in attendance alongside Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic. A housing announcement mere moments away in Kitchener this morning. We've got a reporter at the scene. Number 2, another event this morning, this one at 11 a.m., and it's going to take place outside the office of Kitchener South Hespeler MPP Jess Dixon. This is part of a provincial campaign called Policing Free Schools, which argues that schools need funding, not resource officers. Policing Free Schools opposes amendments to Ontario's Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Students Act, calling it a power grab that ultimately mandates and expands policing in schools. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, after nearly 5 weeks on strike, full-time college support staff represented by OPSU have reached a tentative agreement for more than 10,000 workers across all 24 Ontario colleges. And yes, of course, that means our college, Conestoga, right here in the region of Waterloo. Picket lines will come down today, and the details of the tentative settlement will be presented to members this afternoon. Support staff are scheduled to return to work tomorrow. Number 4, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is calling on Stellantis to, quote, live up to their promise to Brampton workers after the automaker was reported to be moving production slated for an assembly plant to Illinois. In a statement, Ford says he has spoken with Stellantis to stress his, quote, disappointment with their decision to prioritize investment into the U.S. The Premier says no provincial funding has flowed to the automaker for its Brampton project, and no funding will be given until the government receives clear assurances on when the plant will restart. Prime Minister Mark Carney said the move was a direct consequence of U.S. tariffs, and his government would be working with Stellantis to create new opportunities in and around Brampton. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, German Pioneer Day was marked yesterday in our region by honoring the Bingaman family and Michael Kraus, the late founder of Kraus Carpets. Yesterday's event, organized by the Cooperative Council of German Clubs in Waterloo Region, German Pioneer Day was the brainchild of former MPP Wayne Wetlaufer, who wanted to acknowledge and honor the achievements of German pioneers in shaping Ontario's development. And certainly in these here parts, when you think of Kraus Carpets and everything the Bingamans have done, those are a couple of worthy honorees on German Pioneer Day yesterday, to be sure. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 15th of October. I just wanted to touch a little bit more on that Stellantis news from Brampton, because the moment I heard it this morning with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas on All News Mornings, it popped into my mind that indeed this has got to be, and Prime Minister Mark Carney seems to feel similarly, this is a direct result of what U.S. President Donald Trump is doing with regard to tariffs. Couple of things. First of all, and I'll come back to tariffs in just a moment, but Premier Ford's assertion that no funding has been or will be given to Stellantis for this Brampton project. Fair enough. What about Stellantis in Windsor? That was one of those multi-billion-dollar investments, along with Volkswagen in St. Thomas, Honda in Alliston, that our provincial and federal governments have been investing in. So while there may be no Stellantis money or government money to Stellantis in Brampton for that particular Jeep Compass project, it's not as though Stellantis has not been on the receiving end of government support here in Ontario. The piece of this, though, when it comes to tariffs, I can certainly understand that those who are warmer to Donald Trump than others will look at this and say, see, this whole tariff thing, it's working exactly as planned. It is bringing back industry to the United States. And you might have heard Ontario Premier Doug Ford allude to this just the other day, that the Ontario government, in fact, I heard this with our Queen's Park Bureau Chief, Richard Southern, yesterday afternoon. Among other things that Premier Ford was talking about, as MPPs get set to return to the provincial legislature at Queen's Park next week after their 5-month break away from Queen's Park. But among the things the Premier was outlining that will be on the agenda is an advertising campaign, a $75 million advertising campaign aimed at Republican states. Yes, an Ontario government paid ad running in red states in the United States in order to remind voters there that tariffs are not a good thing. And in order to accomplish that goal with this advertising campaign, Premier Ford and the Ontario government are leaning on a former Republican president, one Mr. Ronald Reagan. Now, you may have heard this at some point over the last little while since the whole tariff war, if you will, began. But a lot of people started circulating portions of what was actually, back in the 1980s, a radio address by former President Reagan. Back then, presidents would give a weekly Saturday morning radio address. And Ronald Reagan gave this one back in 1987, and now the Ontario government is using it in an advertising campaign south of the border.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
You're welcome, Ontario government. There is a free play of your new ad. Of course, you're not going to play it here anyway, because that's aimed, as I said before, at Republican voters in red states in the United States, a $75 million advertising campaign. Effective enough. I think it's a decent choice. Here's what I would say about that, though. Remember that this is Ronald Reagan back in 1987. Brian Mulroney was our prime minister here in Canada. It was Reagan and Mulroney that helped move forward what was then NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. They obviously believed in this. And I get the sense that in some corners of the United States, Ronald Reagan is still held in relatively high regard. But I'll just remind you again, 1987, that's almost 40 years ago. I would submit to you on this October morning in 2025 that the conservative and or Republican of almost 40 years ago is not the conservative and or Republican today. The liberal of 40 years ago is not the liberal of today. I could go on and on about that. So I like where this advertising campaign is going. I'm just not certain it resonates with today's Republican. I think today's Republican as evidenced by the votes. And what we're seeing in the United States right now is very much more a MAGA Republican, if that indeed is such a term. Maybe we just coined that term this morning. I'm just not sure Ronald Reagan of almost 40 years ago still resonates with today's Conservative or Republican in the States. But we shall see. The Ontario government is embarking on that advertising campaign. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about Cambridge City Council. I know we talked about Cambridge Council at some length yesterday. A lot of concerns raised around the closure of City Hall, the inaccessibility of council meetings, etc. Last evening, an Integrity Commissioner's report was tabled. It recommended a 10-day suspension of Councillor Adam Cooper's pay in response to a meme that he posted on Facebook earlier this year. Council decided not to invoke the 10-day pay penalty. It did decide on a different direction. And oh yeah, by the way, the Integrity Commissioner found Councillor Cooper on the wrong side of Council's code of conduct for more than just the meme that he shared. We'll get into that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A lot of talk about an Integrity Commissioner's report tabled at Cambridge Council last night. It was a months-long investigation into a meme that Ward 6 councillor in Cambridge, Adam Cooper, had posted to his Facebook page last winter. Many in the community felt as though it was a transphobic meme and issued formal complaints. The Integrity Commissioner's report recommended a 10-day suspension of Councillor Cooper's pay, not just for a violation of the Code of Conduct by the posting of the meme itself, but also for Councillor Cooper's decision to seek legal counsel without paying for it. Here is one of the Integrity Commissioners. It's a law firm in Toronto. This is John Mascarin talking about the ruling.
When Councillor Cooper's initial response to the complaint was made to us through a lawyer, we suspected that Councillor Cooper had not paid for the legal advice provided to him. Ms. Cowan and I considered the matter, and we decided to provide notice to the councillor's legal counsel that the Code of Conduct is absolutely clear, that no member shall accept a fee, advance, gift, or benefit that is connected directly or indirectly with the performance of their duties in office. Councillor Cooper had an obligation to respond to the Code of Conduct complaint, which is something that Council had put in place. He was not entitled to receive free legal advice. In fact, your code actually provides for a payment to a reimbursement to a council member who seeks to get legal advice. So in our view, it was entirely inappropriate for Councillor Cooper to receive legal advice that he wasn't paying for or wasn't seeking reimbursement from the municipality. We provided this to Councillor Cooper's lawyer, who immediately resigned from the matter. Councillor Cooper alleged that we were precluding him from having legal representation. I will disclaim that, and I will disclaim that very strongly. We at no time said that he could have no legal representation. He was fully entitled to do so. He's not fully entitled to do so at no cost as a benefit that he's not allowed to receive under the Code of Conduct.
John Mascarin, the Integrity Commissioner, or one of the lawyers who prepared the report, and he said he shared that by way of information for other councillors in Cambridge. This benefit does exist for councillors who are facing similar allegations. They can retain counsel, but they shall not do that at no cost to themselves. Now, to come back around to what has been at the heart of this story and the sharing of that meme that many described as transphobic. The recommendation, again, a suspension of Councillor Cooper's pay for 10 days. And I would just say this about all of what we've been hearing on this. Actions have consequences. The posting of the meme led to the complaints, which led to the Integrity Commissioner's reports. And it also has consequences personally, as Councillor Cooper shared in some detail in his own defence at the meeting last evening.
What happened then? Unfortunately, it was a very well orchestrated cancel campaign. I can only say that it was the most hurtful, hateful experience to go through, the things that was sent to me, things that somebody shouldn't hear. And if we're going to talk about whether what I said was hurtful, we need to talk about what was said to me, because there's a lot of hypocrisy going on here, and this is just the truth. Don't shoot the messenger. This is what happened. These people went after my family. They went after my friends. They went after anybody that I even remotely did business with. They came at us with the most hateful accusations you can imagine, ones I'm not even going to repeat here. I wonder where the outrage was then. Despite all that, despite what anyone wants to think here, all the people that don't know me and want to claim this was homophobia, transphobia, it was none of that. I was going to say I love the LGBTQ community. I'm not going to say that because I don't discriminate. I hold love for everybody. So what am I going to do? I'm going to continue what I've been doing for years, for 8 years, for years before I became a councillor. And that's to stand up for the residents of this city, the businesses, sometimes doing it on issues that some people are afraid to tackle, which means I get attacked. I'm used to this. It's happened a lot. But I still stand proud in knowing that I know the main issues, the big issues that we're dealing with in Cambridge. We've got lots of big issues. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, homelessness, drug-related crime. I've been standing up for seniors' rights in the long-term care homes, excessive rent increases, all this stuff that really matters to the people in this community. And I'm also going to continue to speak to the things that some people find uncomfortable but need to be said. I'm going to keep doing that. That's what I do. I'm not going to stop. And when people attack me and claim I'm hateful, so be it. But please think about why you're doing it and thinking about what it's going to cause at the end of it and whether it's productive. I love every single one of you here, and I thank you all for being here. You're here because you're passionate and you care, as do I. Peace and love to you all.
One of the other things that Councillor Adam Cooper will do is attend some sensitivity training. Within the next 3 months, his fellow councillors decided against the 10-day suspension of his pay and instead said within the next 3 months he should get some sensitivity training. And I think Ward 7 Councillor Mike Devine explained it pretty darn well.
What we have here is a situation, we can take the pound of flesh, but that pound of flesh is not going to help anybody. It is not going to help anyone. What we need to do is change the attitude and the thought process. I don't think handing out a speeding ticket is going to help anybody, because that's what this penalty is, in my way of thinking, is a speeding ticket. We need to change the attitude. We need to give training. And I believe that will help. I really, really, really believe that will help.
And my apologies, that's Ward 2 Councillor Mike Devine. But we need to change the attitude, and sensitivity training will help. And that's the direction Cambridge Council has gone. We'll talk more about this morning at 11:30 with Rob Deutschman on Political R&D. Right now, an update from the 570 News Centre. And then, are our municipal councils on life support? Let's talk about it on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just a wee bit of background for you as we dive into our first conversation of the day. Yesterday on the show, we had a couple of guests. One was Cambridge City Councillor Adam Cooper, who had written an op-ed, an opinion piece for one of our local media outlets that publishes the printed word. And Councillor Cooper was talking about LRT, I think most specifically, but in a general way, posed the question, what kind of city do we want Cambridge to be? Also on the show yesterday, we had a former regional councillor on the show, Tom Galloway, who had written an op-ed of his own in support of Phase 2 of light rail transit. And Tom remembered and reminded us that in 2019, when he was still on regional council and really had been the go-to source on light rail transit for the region as a councillor, He finished his opening remarks when Phase 1 opened back in 2019 with the words "onward to Cambridge." And Tom wanted to remind us the importance of getting rail, not rapid bus transit, but rail transit into Cambridge. Later yesterday, another former, not Tom Galloway, but another former local councillor was kind of ribbing me a little bit, saying, "Oh yeah, you're just having all the people who have written op-eds onto the show these days," which is what we're about to do, because Regional Councillor Doug Craig has written one as well. And I take no issue with that at all. I reminded this former councillor that I've been covering councils in this community long enough to remember times. It kind of goes in this ebb and flow, I guess. But I remember times where councillors were not as forthcoming or as willing to come on to the show and have conversations about things. They wouldn't put themselves out there with an opinion on anything. They would just, they would do their work, but getting involved in anything media-wise and more public with any sort of position taken on anything wasn't something that they tended to do a whole lot. So I, quite frankly, am very pleased that councillors are willing to do this, put their own thoughts forward by way of an op-ed, and then maybe even coming on to this show to talk about it further. And that's what we do with Regional Councillor Doug Craig this morning, who has written about the state of municipal governments today and the funding arrangement between municipal governments and their upper-level partners at the province and, of course, in Ottawa federally. The op-ed from Councillor Craig is under the headline, "Local Councils are on the verge of life support." So as we welcome Doug Craig to the program, why don't we just start there, Doug? What do you mean by local councils are on the verge of life support?
Well, what I mean by that is we have major problems in the community, problems in terms of addiction, in terms of homeless people that we can't house because we don't have the money. And we don't have the legislative power to deal with it. But more importantly, too, we don't have the financial resources anymore to deal with issues that people want us to deal with. And one of them, year after year, is tax increases.
You said we don't have the financial wherewithal anymore to deal with them. Did we once have this?
Well, we were certainly in a better shape years ago. Okay, and in fact, I can remember in the 1990s, under Mayor Brewer, we had 9 years of 0% increase in taxes. And that was a bit of a record for the region. And other municipalities also had the funding and were able to do much more in terms of supporting the populations within their cities.
Oftentimes, Doug, when we hear about record like that, 9 years of 0% tax increases, we get told today that we're paying the piper now for those decisions then. How on earth did we get away with that 0% increases?
Well, I think that then we had a greater income. We didn't have the downloading then that we have now, which is part of the problem. And we certainly were able to adapt to the reasonable requests of the population within our communities to come in with proper tax increases.
So what is it that has changed so dramatically that our municipal councils are now on life support?
Well, I think the main thing being is the downloading from the province. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that has now been put on local taxpayers, property taxpayers, that really can't afford the costs of this downloading. I think that's the major issue that certainly has hampered municipal councils.
It sounds to me like what we're talking about is, once again, the need for some sort of new fiscal model. But, I mean, oftentimes, too, when we talk about money, it can't be the magic bullet. But in this case, is it? The cities just need more money, a different funding arrangement with the provincial government?
Well, I think we need a better funding relationship. There's no question about that. You can't simply keep shifting programs onto property taxpayers down from the province. And we also have to have a shift in attitude from the province in terms of staying out of municipal affairs and allowing local democratically elected officials to make decisions instead of imposing arbitrary decisions at the Queen's Park level that are undermining local democracy within our municipalities.
You talk about locally elected officials and the onus, the burden that is on them. And it's always been my belief, Doug, that it's the first point of contact for somebody that's frustrated. They may not be frustrated with a local issue, but it's a local councillor or a local representative that they will go to first. So given the state of the fiscal arrangement currently and all of these problems that are happening locally, what's the impact then on our perspective or perception of local governments?
Well, I think that's reflected in the turnout at the election. I mean, the last municipal election in the region of Waterloo had a turnout of voters of 25%. So you have 75% of the electorate is not turning out, is not getting involved in what's going on. And I think to some extent has turned their back on local governments to do the things they want, in terms of major issues that they're facing in the community, affordability being the number one issue.
When we look around the community and we talk about issues of homelessness, of addiction, which absolutely would fall under the purview of upper levels of government, and we've got, our regional government, which you're a member of the council there, more than $65 million being dedicated to the plan to end chronic homelessness. By dedicating all of these resources to things that should be funded by other levels of government, what do you see us missing, Doug? What are we failing to fund locally that's falling behind?
Well, I think everything from improved transit, as an example, especially in some areas of our region in the townships, we have fallen behind, and we're always in a catch-up mode. Paramedics are a perfect example of that, where we had fallen behind. Policing, we've fallen behind in terms of the number of police officers per 100,000. I mean, we're the second lowest in Ontario. It's these kinds of issues that put the community to somewhat in jeopardy at times and that need to be addressed through a new model of local government.
The big question, I guess, then, in all of this, and I will be clear, I agree with you wholeheartedly on this, just as somebody that lives here and covers these issues, very frustrated by the current state of affairs fiscally between municipalities and the province. Even the federal government, I think, owes us as cities more. But how do we go about affecting change here, Doug?
Well, I think the thing is to keep speaking out, to keep writing about things, and I think demanding from the provincial government that let's go back a number of years when we had royal commissions and have a royal commission set up and to investigate municipalities across Ontario in terms of how to improve them, make them fiscally solvent, and be able to react to what people want us to do.
I can't help but notice by the calendar that you and I are having this conversation as you start getting serious about 2026 budget deliberations at Regional Council. I've been very critical of the increases the past number of years. Are you trying to brace us for another big increase?
Well, I think that let's be logical right here. I mean, staff have been asked at the regional level to come in at 5%. And I think that's going to be strenuous to do that from what I'm hearing from some of my colleagues on council. I think we have to come in lower. I think that's going to be extremely difficult.
What would that look like, coming in even lower than that 5%? Surely at that point we'd be talking about cuts.
We're talking about cuts, sure, to certainly in terms of across the board, and the social services in particular are going to be hurt. And yes, I think that's the main issue.
Doug, I appreciate you speaking out on this and making time for the show as always. Thank you for being here.
It's always a pleasure, Mike. Take care.
Doug Craig is a regional councillor representing Cambridge. He's also, of course, the former mayor of that city. And he has written an op-ed which he discusses with us this morning, saying that local councils are on life support. The idea that municipalities are being underfunded by the province is not a new idea at all. There has been considerable conversation around this idea of a new fiscal arrangement. There have been meetings held with representatives from the province. I believe the feds were there as well, but a meeting was convened at regional headquarters, as I recall, here in Kitchener, to talk about this very thing. And again, it's been brought up so many times, I think we're well aware of this downloading, right? The things that the province used to pay for that it no longer pays for and expects cities to then go about covering the funding for. And the only lever that municipal governments have to generate funds is property taxes. We could get into some user fees, but I don't know how lucrative, if you will, user fees would be to deal with the magnitude of the problems that we are dealing with. I think it's worth reminding you in the context of this conversation that here in Ontario, the cost of social housing is borne by the municipalities in this province. That's the only province or territory in all of Canada where that situation exists. Everywhere else, it's the provincial government that does that funding or pays that funding. So just think about all of those downward pressures on our municipalities, leading Councillor Craig to say local councils are on life support. I've always looked at it this way, and I would encourage Prime Minister Carney to be paying attention to it as well, because there's all this talk about nation-building projects, nation-building exercises. And I will tell you that you cannot build a nation if the foundation is weak and or crumbling. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And what is our country anyway? A bunch of linked municipalities. Full stop. We had a municipality not far from Timmins, getting into northern Ontario, that declared bankruptcy. It's broke, completely out of money. Can't pay anybody anymore. How do we end up in a situation like this? And more to the point, how do we recover from it? And in that same breath, we heard Councillor Craig say, 5% increase? I think we have to go even lower. Well, if we're starved for money and yet we can't even stomach a 5% municipal tax increase, what is that telling us? It's a big mess, is what it is. And I wonder sometimes a couple of things. How much of this has to do with provincial downloading and what the province used to pay for and now cities are paying for, and how much of this is cities, and frankly, I might argue all governments, but we'll focus on cities right now, trying to do more than is required of them. Right? Is the garbage getting picked up? Are the streets being plowed? Are we making sure the water is clean? What else? What other things have municipal governments gotten involved in that perhaps they need not be involved in? Because every time they get involved, it costs us money. Hello, speed cameras and the 33 employees hired by the regional government to manage a program. Well, anyway, I'll leave that there. I don't mean to derail this with a speed camera conversation, but what do you think of the state of our cities today? How do we improve what we've got? How do we get our councils off of life support? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
In the last municipal election, the region of Waterloo had a turnout of voters of 25%. So you have 75% of the electorate is not turning out, is not getting involved in what's going on. And I think to some extent has turned their back on local governments to do the things they want, in terms of major issues that they're facing in the community. Affordability being the number one issue.
And suddenly we end up with a sort of chicken and egg situation, don't we? Are people not voting in municipal elections because they simply don't care? They've become disengaged from the process? Or are people not voting in municipal elections because they don't feel as though their municipal governments are getting the job done, because they see rampant homelessness, addictions in full display on our street corners, and other social issues that they believe the municipal government should be responsible for? And in fact, in many ways, our provincial government, and I'm not hanging this, I want to be very clear about this, I'm not hanging this all or planting this all on the doorstep of Doug Ford. This was happening long before Doug Ford came along. This issue of provincial governments not adequately supporting municipal governments when it comes to the funding model that exists today. But how do we get people more engaged, and how do we fix the broken funding arrangement? That's the big question. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. That was Doug Craig, by the way, regional councillor who represents Cambridge. He has written an op-ed under the title of local councils, are on life support. Dan sends me an email to mike@570news.com, and I can't help but agree wholeheartedly with this. Dan's email is entitled 0% increase in 9 years. And then he writes, is irresponsible governing. Please name one thing that does not rise in price year after year. We cannot use this as something to compare to. I'm with you, Dan. I'll take you to Woolwich Township, which is staring down the barrel of double-digit municipal tax increases for each of the next 3 years. Why? We had Mayor Sandy Shantz on this show, and she was telling us that for the past decade or more, there was a decision made, a determined effort to not increase property taxes at a necessary, perhaps, rate. You dig into reserves, you do different things, and then the next thing you know, the chickens come home to roost and you have to pay that so-called piper. And it's going to be exorbitant. We just saw Wilmot Council go through that. So, yeah, a 0% increase. Look, I get it. Nobody likes paying taxes. I understand that. I wonder if we could, or if it's too late, to reframe the idea of taxes more as investments in our community. I want healthcare that is accessible for all. I'm more than willing to pay into the tax fund that creates an accessible healthcare system where people have family doctors, where they're not waiting 8, 10, 12 or more hours in an emergency room, where they're getting the care that they need. I want good hospitals with good equipment and qualified doctors and nurses in that hospital. I want our roads to run smoothly. I want our transit system to be effective and efficient. I'm more than willing to make these investments in my community as a community member. So when we get stuck in this idea that the only acceptable tax increase is a 0% tax increase, then we wind up in situations like this. Doug Craig thinks the 5% bar that Regional Council is setting for budget 2026 is going to be unreachable. He thinks it should be even lower. I don't know that we're even going to get a 5% increase. I worry after the last couple of years of 10% that even 5 is a pipe dream right now. But we got to figure this out. And I've always said, year over year, if it's more than inflation, because your people costs go up, I get it, they get raises, this, that, the other thing. If we're going up beyond the rate of inflation, we have to ask a serious question as to why. Why is it going up more than inflation? Are we taking on more than we need to do? Are some costs going up at a greater rate than others? And how can we better manage those costs? But the funding arrangement right now is broke. And soon, we're going to be broke too. An update from the 570 News Center, and then we mind Ottawa's business with the Blacklocks reporter every Wednesday morning. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning at this time, we check in with our friends at the Blacklocks Reporter in Ottawa. That's the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital, all original content. You can find it and get a subscription for yourself at blacklocks.ca. It is well worth your time and investment because they are covering stories that nobody else does. And every Wednesday morning at this time, we get a little insight with the managing editor at Blacklocks Reporter. Tom Korski joins us. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Mike.
We know that we are in an era of austerity in Ottawa. The Prime Minister has made this clear. Budgets need to be reduced incrementally over the next 3 years by 15%. But does this not apply to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission?
It's interesting, isn't it? When you see these stories, it tells you that either the austerity drive hasn't clicked in yet, and some very senior people in the government of Canada are apparently deliberately obtuse, or they know that it's all talk and no walking. Here is the president of the Nuclear Safety Commission. He's paid $250,000 a year, and President Tremblay awarded himself an 85% increase in his travel and hospitality budget, Mike. That's 85%. In a hilarious internal memo, says there's an extreme risk here that taxpayers might find out. An elevated risk, he said, on account of the government has promised austerity, so we definitely don't want this getting around. 85%. He would be up to almost $200,000, not including a $50,000 housing allowance. Deficit times are good times, Mike.
Deficit times are good times, Tom. Not such a good time, at least from what I'm hearing from folks around Bill C-9. Attempts to regulate the internet to some degree, prosecute hate crimes, etc. I mean, how much regulation are we talking about here, and how much of what we're doing on the internet will be regulated?
Cabinet has a history, don't they? They have a history of having a fetish for control. And they have a couple of companion bills that are working their way through committee in the House right now. C-9 is colloquially the swastika ban bill, and it seems to be of not as much controversy as its companion, C-8. C-8 is fascinating. This is an act respecting cybersecurity. Anybody can look it up. It's on the internet. What would it do? It allows Cabinet, I read the legal text, Mike, any Cabinet member, by secret order, can, I quote, prohibit a telecom service provider from using all products and services provided to a specific person, end of quote. This is justified by any threat. MPs have looked at this, their heads have exploded, and said, so let me get this straight. The Minister of Industry doesn't like my tweets. The minister says that I am a threat to the telecom system. The minister signs a secret order telling my cable service provider to cut me off, and the order is confidential, to which Cabinet, in not their best moment, assured the House, look at you guys with your crazy conspiracy theories. It's not like we're going to go around going after people's bank accounts. And he said, you already did that. You froze the bank accounts for the Freedom Convoy. Keep an eye on that one, Mike. That's a good call. Bill C-8, that's a box of fireworks.
Well, see, and I thought I had connected those dots exactly how you just explained it, but then my head exploded a little bit. By secret order, all of a sudden, because somebody doesn't like what I posted on the internet, suddenly I'm cut off.
Any threat. This is the legal text of the bill. And there have been MPs, Leslie Lewis, Conservative MP, pointed out to the House. She said, okay, let's take this. Let's say I have a constituent who filed a couple of access to information requests, got some documents, exposed some petty corruption in a department, and is going to start posting this on her Facebook page. The law says any threat doesn't have to be subterfuge. It doesn't have to be sabotage by foreign agents. Any threat by anybody, and you can lose all your internet access, and you'll never have a right to complain because they don't have to tell you, Mike. I'd be very surprised if that bill even gets out of committee. But you got to give it to Cabinet for doing the college tribe. I say fetish for control, that they got to scratch that. They can't help themselves.
All right, let's talk about the border. It's been the subject of much discussion since U.S. President Donald Trump won re-election, and we have promised on our end of things to beef up border security to the tune of 2,000 more RCMP officers and Canada Border Guards. How's that going for us?
Not so good. Minister of Public Safety, Gary Anandasangri, was asked that very question in committee. How's it going, Gary? And he couldn't answer the question. Very simple question. And the promise was very straightforward in the election campaign. As you point out, these are not trivial hirings. It was 1,000 customs officers to crack down on drugs, I'm reading from the Liberal platform, and 1,000 constables to tackle drug and human trafficking, end of quote, kind of a big deal. They re-announced it 4 times, and they asked Minister Ananda Sangri, how many have you hired so far? And he didn't know. And then the minister made the mistake of saying, I'm not responsible for the hiring, to which MPs replied, no, Gary, that is literally what you're responsible for in your job description, responsible for hiring, way up on the list. It was not a successful appearance, Mike.
But he's also responsible for that gun buyback program that he doesn't think will work anyway.
And is going to cost, even by the budget office estimate, on their best day, $500 million. Even Gary's own department says they have no research that it will contribute to public safety. Over $500 million. And they have no data. Remember, follow the science? No, there's no science here. It's just an article of faith.
We are having a conversation in our community today, Tom, around an integrity commissioner's report into a councillor's alleged misconduct in the city of Cambridge. So I have to ask about our Privy Council and the number of investigations into workplace misconduct there. We've got one right now in Cambridge. How are we doing at the Privy Council?
43. And some of these are, this is not just bullying and run-of-the-mill harassment and shenanigans by incompetent or mediocre managers in an office. Some of them, at least 2, are undescribed criminal investigations. Others are out and out. There's cases of fraud, forgery. Misconduct and wrongdoing have no place in our work, said the wrongdoing report, but apparently they did 43 times. Disrespectful comments. My favorite was abuse of authority, and the employee who complained at a meeting that his manager was incompetent should have gotten a Christmas bonus for calling that one. No, that was one of the misconduct. Mike, every time they do these investigations, only this past summer in July, the Department of Foreign Affairs, they counted 22 Canadian diplomats. You remember we discussed that, fired for fraud, theft, embezzlement, kickbacks. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Tom, always appreciate the insight. Thanks for being here again this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski is the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital with neither politics nor punditry. Find it online, blacklocks.ca. Great place to get yourself a subscription to that as well. One of the things that you hear Tom talk about often, and you heard him make reference to this again when we were talking about Bill C-8, for example, is at committee. These are the sorts of things that go on behind the scenes. Many people who have been in these hallways of power before talk about that's where the real work gets done, at committee, right? And so I thought I would share with you just somewhat tangentially what had been going on at a committee last week. It is the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. And that's where we found the president of Conestoga College, John Tibbetts, answering questions from MPs Michelle Garner-Rempel and Brad Redekop. They are both Conservative MPs, but at this Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration, were President Tibbetts' feet ever held to the fire?
I got to say, it's kind of a mess, hey? I mean, you were quoted as saying about Sioux College President David Orazietti some pretty wild things. You called him a whore. Yet I note that your salary is it's over $600,000. You are now the highest paid college university president in the province. We've heard some pretty bad things about foreign students at your college. How do you reconcile those comments you made about another university president with your present salary and the mess that the region now finds itself in due to your decisions to juice foreign student permits to that level?
Well, first of all, the region is not in a mess. And secondly, I did apologize about that matter. That was a mistake.
Okay.
All our students found housing, and they weren't all living in no, they did.
Minister Sean Fraser allowed unlimited study permits, a system that Conestoga adapted to, and then Minister Miller pulled the rug out from that system with surprise hard caps. Is the Liberal government to blame for creating this mess?
Well, I think that what we have done all along is worked with the feds, worked with the province, worked with municipalities and industry, and they certainly wanted us to grow dramatically because they couldn't fill positions across a wide range of industries, healthcare, skilled trades. It's a huge issue in our community. So there's no question that we needed to grow dramatically.
You're saying the federal government was encouraging you to grow those student populations as much as you could?
Yes.
Yeah. When this great growth in your student population happened between 22 and 23, 24, your population increased by 16,000 students. And with the housing shortage that was in the area, students had to live in sometimes dozens or more of people in one house. So is it safe to assume that you were more concerned with the potential revenue from these students than with the living conditions of the students?
It was never our intention. It was not the money. I know that one gentleman was talking about the funding. That's not what why we grew the international. We grew the international because we don't have enough domestic students to fill the jobs in our region. That's the reason we did it. We invested everything in that. We invested every bit of that back into the community.
Dr. Tibbetts, you had $550 million in your bank account on March 31st of this year. Do you deserve your $600,000 salary?
That's the salary I'm being paid and I take the job very seriously.
And it is a job to fill roles in our workplaces that cannot be filled domestically. And don't worry, Waterloo Region is not in a mess when it comes to housing, transit, shortages, given the number of international students that had been accepted at Conestoga College and beyond. Just a little bit of insight into these committees that you hear Tom Korski make reference to from time to time. That's Conestoga College President John Tibbetts appearing before the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration last week. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it is a big house party in support of house building. We'll tell you about it on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I had to do a bit of a double take when I looked at 6th annual. I can't believe coming up later this month. In fact, 2 weeks today, if I'm being exact, on the 29th of October, it will be the 6th annual Big House Party in support of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. Joining us to talk more about it, Marisa McCaskill, Development and Donor Relations Specialist with Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. Marisa, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for making the time. The 6th annual. My goodness, time flies, doesn't it?
It really does.
So tell us more about the Big House Party coming up on the 29th.
Yes, so as you mentioned, this is our annual event. So it's our annual fundraising event, the Big House Party. This year's event is presented by Miller Thompson, so we're super grateful for their support. As you mentioned, 2 weeks today, October 29th from 6 to 9 p.m., and it's happening at the museum downtown Kitchener. So guests will have a nice opportunity to also explore the exhibits while they come to the event.
It's a great venue for it, and we've had the opportunity on many occasions in the past to experience the museum as a venue. And this just makes, for a great night out in support of home building in our community. So can you give us an idea, Marisa, what the funds raised will help do?
Absolutely. So funds raised will go to support our home build program. So that helps families in our community gain strength and stability through affordable housing. As a lot of people are aware of our program, we have volunteers who come and build homes with us, and that helps us be able to build homes in an affordable way so that families can get a mortgage they can afford.
You mentioned Miller Thompson as a presenting sponsor, and I know that events like this can't happen without support from clear across the community. Who else is helping to make sure this Big House Party goes off again without a hitch this year?
Absolutely. We've got a lot of great sponsors. Our big sponsors this year are Miller Thompson, as we mentioned. Home Depot Pro is actually our community builder sponsor for this event, and they're matching all donations, ticket sales, and silent auction bids up to $25,000. So they're a big one. And we also have ABA Architects who are sponsoring our silent auction.
Love to hear about those matching donations then, because for every $25 we donate, it's 50, 50's 100. It just goes on from there. I know folks can do the math. You mentioned that silent auction. How can we participate in that?
So that opens today at noon and runs through to November 1st. So you can go to our website, habitatwr.ca, to get to our silent auction page. There's lots of great items up there already, just waiting to be bid on. We've got a great date night package in St. Jacobs with the hotel stay and Drayton Theatre tickets. We'll have Rangers tickets going up there. Lots of great things going up over the next 2 weeks. So definitely check that out.
Okay, we will make a note of habitatwr.ca, the website where we can go. That silent auction will open as of noon today, so in the next 90 minutes or so. Again, all of this is happening at the museum in downtown Kitchener 2 weeks from today, Wednesday evening, the 29th of October. If we can't make it in person, Marisa, are there ways that we can still support this effort and the work you do at Habitat?
Absolutely. So if you go to our website, on our event webpage, you have the option to buy tickets, but you also have the option to make a donation, and you can also get to the silent auction there as well. So any of those ways are great ways to support the event and support us, and also sharing our posts on social media so your networks see those things as well.
Having had the chance to be in attendance in the past, I know this is just really, it turns out to be a fun night. There's a Halloween theme associated with it, and we get to have a good time while doing some fundraising. Are we going to have music, food again this year like usual?
Absolutely. So some highlights of the event, of course, are the best MC around. Thanks to you for donating your time.
Don't say that. I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I appreciate it.
No. You have to be thanked. We really appreciate it. And yes, we're going to have Something's Always Flying again. They're an amazing local band, and they also donate their time to the event, so we're super appreciative of them. And we also have a special family joining us for the event who were part of the Jimmy Carter build in the 90s, and they still own that house today and gather 3 generations for family meals each week. So we're excited to hear from them as well.
It's a great opportunity for us to learn more about the work, hear those impactful stories, and have a good time while we're fundraising. We'll watch for that silent auction to go live at noon today as well. Marisa, thank you for this. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks so much.
Marisa McCaskill is the Development and Donor Relations Specialist for Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region, talking about, I can't believe it's 6 years already, but the 6th annual Big House Party. It comes up exactly 2 weeks today, which is a Wednesday evening, the 29th, 6 until 9, so a nice casual weekday evening night out, and it is lots of fun because it's the 29th of October. There's a Halloween theme. We have seen many a creative costume in years past. Something's Always Flying. If you haven't had the chance to hear them before, they are a terrific local band. And I couldn't help but pick up when Marisa mentioned that they donate their time to this. That's kind of the secret sauce to events in the community, right? Marisa mentioned the corporate partners, including Miller Thompson, Home Depot, and it goes on from there. And then you have a band that donates its time and talents. So we all get to have a good time, and it doesn't cost the organization. So that means more money can go into the fundraising, which is so critically important. I've long talked about how much I love the Habitat for Humanity model where, yes, you get that affordable mortgage, you get that home for your family, but you put in the sweat equity, those hours of your own effort that go into the actual building of the home. And we're supporting all of those great programs through this annual fundraising event. The auction will go live online at noon today. And also, thanks to the supporting partners, your impact by way of donation will be doubled because they've got a matching partner. So habitatwr.ca is the website you can visit. Some great auction items available. Make that donation. The impact will be doubled. And moreover, if you could join us, I mean, it's always a good time. I promise you that. A couple of weeks from today, 6 till 9 at the museum in downtown Kitchener. We're going to help build homes through the Big House Party in support of Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region. Check out habitatwr.ca. I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update in the next 30 minutes. It was a Hollywood blockbuster on the big screen. Now it's coming to the small stage as a musical in Cambridge. And a week from this Friday, we're going to lace them up for the 12th annual Hockey Helps the Homeless Waterloo Region Tournament. More about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are just 9 days away, and that's easy for me to say. Our guests in studio, it might send a shiver or two up and down their spine, because 9 days away from our 12th annual Hockey Helps the Homeless Waterloo Region Tournament, which means 9 more days to get all the ducks in a row and then have that excellent day at Rim Park. Joining me in studio, Rob Way, who is the chair of the Hockey Helps the Homeless Waterloo Region Volunteer Committee. Always good to see you. Good morning, Rob. Craig Herner, the vice chair of that committee, is with us as well. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Mike.
And Lindsay White is here, the rose between two thorns, literally sitting mid-seat here in the studio. Manager of Safe Haven Youth Shelter at Starling Community Services. Good morning to you, Lindsay.
Morning.
Rob, let's start with you. Does the 9 days away send any shivers, or are you guys just all set with this nowadays?
No, you know what? We have our players, we have the teams, we have our volunteers. Now it's just... let's get some donations in place. Right as of this morning, we were sitting at about 50% of our goal of $350,000 that we want to be able to invest in homeless programs in the region. So not unusual to be sitting there at this point, because a lot of funds come in, over the last 5 or 6 days. But, the message really is, if you know somebody playing in the tournament, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I'd love to support what you're doing. It's a great cause.
On the note of the fundraising, I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I know we're more than $2 million now.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5
in 11 years.
Okay,
and the important thing is that's the amount we've invested. That's not the raised amount. That's the invested amount in the programs.
It's like you read my mind, Rob, because you emphasized that last time too, which was a good reminder for me. $2.5 million and a bit invested in the community. Yeah. In homeless services over the past 11 years.
Exactly.
So, Lindsay, let's talk to you in your work about, I know you didn't get all $2.5 million, but as one of the partners in this, what does that money mean?
And I like the word invest, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about, we can't do what we do without the support of our community. And Hockey Helps the Homeless, when it started, is this 12th year? Yeah, 12 years ago. They've invested to ensure that we are able to keep our doors open. Not only, our services, but all the services within the housing, homelessness, stability system are not fully funded. And so we do rely heavily on the community to support us with that. And Hockey Helps the Homeless, is a big part of that, and the investment that has been made. And the investment has increased over the last 12 years as well. So can't say enough thanks to these folks and the amount of work that goes into this tournament every year.
You talk about can't believe it's 12 years. Mm-hmm. I remember we sat around that little boardroom table right at Walter Fady all those years ago and talked about the very origins of this.
Yep. And at that time, it was exciting because we're bringing in two kind of different sectors, right? Like the hockey, I call it sector, but the hockey folks that maybe didn't have an idea about what was going on in their, in the communities where Hockey Helps the Homeless, plays and supports across Canada, right? And so bringing to the marriage, I guess, of the two has really increased the visibility of what is actually happening locally and across Canada. And so it was just it was very exciting when we sat, at that table, just to bring folks in and have the awareness out there more so than
I call it activation.
Right? Yes,
so we have 250 players that we've activated to go out and help raise money. And I think that's a big role for us. And they're having fun playing hockey at.
And, well, not just fun playing hockey, but they get that Olympian or former NHLer in the locker room with them. Exactly. There's stories, there's camaraderie.
Nice swag.
Absolutely.
And, it's a win-win. I tell people it's the total win-win here.
And you run a top-notch, like from the moment people arrive at Rim Park, this thing is just, it's a well-oiled machine on the day of.
Think about it. You drive up, you press your open the trunk button, and somebody comes and gets your bag and takes it to your room. I mean, I wish I had that for all those years I was playing. I might be still playing now for crying.
So, Lindsay, over the last decade plus, can you give us a sense of maybe even what we've seen in the space, particularly through Safe Haven Youth Shelter, and how that's changed, how this funding has helped the work that you do there?
Lots has changed.
Yeah.
I was just talking this year. We have seen usually summers slow down a little bit for us. And I might be aging myself, but I've been with Safe Haven and Starling for 25 years. And so seeing from where I've started and the youth that we've supported to now, we did not slow down. We haven't slowed down. We had our busiest summer ever. And the challenges that are arising in our community are the highest I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change in the foreseeable future. And so we talk about what it takes to support youth and support even with all our partner agencies and what that looks like. We need the support of our community to continue to support the youth and those that are needing the services through shelter, right, in our community. And thankfully, Hockey Helps the Homeless has been very steady with that support over the last 12 years. And we're so very grateful for everything that, these guys beside me have been there for all, if not most of the journey and knowing the work that goes into this. And we can't say thanks enough. And I speak on behalf of all of our partner agencies when I say that.
All right. Craig Herner, I don't want to leave you out of this. Rob was talking about the important push, and we always see donations come in as the day approaches, for sure. It's all about, if you know somebody participating in this, throw a couple of bucks their way. Let's drive up those donation numbers. But there are, if I can put it this way, selfish ways to get involved too. We can get something in return for our donation through an online auction, a live auction coming up on draft night next Thursday. Walk us through the other ways we can support, Craig.
Sure. So our live auction is at our draft night event next Thursday, which is for the players and sponsors and invited guests. But we have 4 great items. We have a trip to Winnipeg, so you get some Winnipeg Jets tickets, $2,000 spending money, a meet and greet with Mark Scheifele. We have our Toronto package hosted by Gilbert Dion, where you get the Hockey Hall of Fame, a dinner, and then a Leaf game. We have the Sportscaster with Mike Farwell for a Kitchener Ranger game.
Priceless.
It is priceless.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I was just talking to the folks at the Rangers offices about that a week or so ago.
Yeah.
We're all set.
Exactly. And then we also have a private dining experience at Dell's at the Charcoal Steakhouse. So if you are not at draft night, you can always put in some bids. Just do Rob Way at Rogers.com. He can hook you up with getting a bid in for one of those 4 items for sure.
All right. And there's no tricks in that. It's Rob, R-O-B, Way, W-A-Y. It's no easier than that. Rob Way at Rogers.com. Send Rob an email and get those bids started on those great packages.
Exactly. And then we also have our online auction. So if you just go to wr.hhth.com and click on the online auction link, we have like 99 items up there, including the Habitat. You were just on with Habitat. So they have donated Build Day for 10. So if there's any companies out there or large groups of people that want to bid on that, that is a wonderful experience for them. We also have the Rangers Suite for the game on Tuesday, November the 18th. You can bid on that as well. And also the Ultimate Hot Ones experience with Ginger Goat Hot Sauce and Morty's. So you and 7 friends can go and have a great time dipping your wings in different hot sauces. And we have all sorts of other items on the online auction, lots of different hockey stuff. We have Toronto Scepters tickets. We have the Cambridge Red Hawks passes, Elmira Sugar Kings tickets, and so on.
wr.hhth.com. I was just on there this morning. There, like, you name it, you'll find it there. You can make a bid. Like I said, it's kind of selfish, but you can get something for yourself, and you're helping out this fundraiser at the same time.
Exactly.
All right. Rob, you and I have one little piece of business to finish up. And, poor Rob, he comes in here and says, can we just do this quietly, or are you going to make me grovel on the air? And I'm like,
I knew the answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rob. I'm just not that nice. Let's be honest. So you are a fan of the team that shall not be named.
No, you can name them.
I will not. I cannot, actually. And they played the greatest team in the world on the planet, the Toronto Maple Leafs, last Wednesday night. And you made a wager. I don't know why you would wager on that team that shall not be named, but you did.
Yes. My Habs, who have only lost 1 game this year, managed to lose it to the Maple Leafs, and it cost me $5. And I humbly give that to you.
I gratefully accept. Now, what I wanted, like, how can we make this multiply, though? Because I don't want to just, I mean, I want to take your $5.
No, I'm sure
you bet on that team. But listen, I always make a donation, and I'm late in doing so, to Carl Kiefer, the former Cambridge councillor.
Well, he'll love that. He's a Leaf fan.
Yeah,
so.
but I got it. It's got to be more than 5. So we'll make it at least 50. But I'm wondering if we can, I don't know if there's a way we can make it even more. But I'm going to take this, so it's 55 minimum to Carl Kiefer on this now.
Well, how about if any Leaf fans that are listening make a donation to, they can make the donation to Hockey Helps the Homeless. Just go on to our website and just, we'll keep an eye out for them coming in, and we'll let folks know how much they came through.
This is perfect. So here's what, I love that idea. To all my fellow Leafs fans, especially if you hate the team that shall not be named, drop me an email to, let's do it, mike@570news.com, and we'll collect all of these names. And I've got 55 to start the pot. We'll see what we can grow the pot to, and we'll make a nice big donation on behalf of the Leafs fans, because we crushed Rob's favorite hockey team that shall not be named. And we'll raise some money for Hockey Helps the Homeless at the same time.
Well, I've always heard about the power of the Leafs. We'll see what happens.
We are going to find out. The donation portal is open. Drop me an email. We'll sort out the logistics, okay? Mike@570news.com. We're starting with Rob's 5. Let's not forget that. I'm adding 50 on, so we're 55 and counting from here, and we'll see how high we can go. We'll get a donation to this awesome effort. I honestly, Rob, you and Craig and the entire volunteer committee, kudos. Year after year, you just continue to impress and amaze.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our committee is so passionate about this. It's just, they know there's a need, and just like everybody in this community, they step up. So
$350,000. That's our target. 9 days to go. $55 and counting from Leafs fans. Let's keep it going. Mike@570news.com, the email address. Rob Way, Craig Herner on the volunteer committee for Hockey Helps the Homeless, and Lindsay White, manager of Safe Haven Youth Shelter at Starling Community Services. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you at draft night.
Absolutely.
And here's to another great tournament. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know that on this show, we are not only supportive of things going on in our community by way of fundraising, and there is a passion for sports underneath all of that for sure. There is also, however, a passion for the arts in this community. And so it is with that in mind that we remind you that opening this Friday, 2 days from now on the 17th, at the Cambridge Arts Theatre, that beautiful theatre on Water Street South in Cambridge. A presentation of Community on Stage. It will be Ghost the Musical. And by Ghost the Musical, I mean Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. The musical. They're not going to be in it, but you know what I mean. The big Hollywood show is coming to the stage in Cambridge, and the curtain rises on Friday at 8. Andrew Scott is the director of the show and joins us to talk more about it. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are we doing?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How about yourself?
Excellent. At the theater in the middle of getting everything ready.
I love to hear it. You paint a great picture just with that. Love it. Along with Andrew, we have Sebastian Williams with us as well, the musical director for Ghost the Musical. Sebastian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, Andrew, if I could begin with you, at the theater, getting ready for Friday night, 48 hours out. How you feeling?
I am incredibly excited at this point. This show has been one that I wanted to direct for the better part of a decade now. So finally getting to put this on stage and bring the magic of this show to life is quite literally a dream come true right now.
Why have you been looking forward to it for so long? What is it about this show?
Honestly, it's the music. The score to this, like the movie is, of course, a classic and beloved in pop culture. And the way that they've taken this and translated it to the stage, the music that they've managed to add to it, I absolutely fell in love with how gorgeous a story it was. And that's without all the dialogue. You listen to cast recordings and it's just the songs. you get all the dialogue in between, the emotional roller coaster that the show takes you on. To be here and doing it all now, I'm like, it's something, like I say, I fell in love with many years ago, and I've just wanted to direct it ever since.
Sebastian, as a musical director for a story that we know so well, how do you go about approaching this?
Well, like Andrew said, the music is written in such a beautiful way. A lot of it on my end was helping to pull out the emotion from the cast. I mean, the words and the notes are written on the page, and it's the fun part is trying to pull out all of the intention behind all that music.
I love that, and I know how much talent we have in this community in order to pull this off. Can you share with us, Sebastian, a little bit of the folks that you've been working with and what kinds of performances we're going to be able to enjoy as this show opens on Friday?
Yeah, of course. Our Oda May brings a lot of energy to a few of her solo songs. So she's definitely, I would say, the bright light, the happiness that we see in the show. The Molly that we have then singing a few of her slower, more ballad type solos definitely brings in the sorrow and the grief through the show. There's those performers absolutely. They're absolutely crushing their performances on stage.
Is there a pottery wheel and Unchained Melody as part of this, Sebastian?
Yes, there is a pottery wheel, and Unchained Melody is licensed from the original movie. So there are several instances of the song throughout the show, and that theme finds its way throughout various scenes. And yes, Andrew has been working to block some pottery scenes as well.
That can't be easy, Andrew, to block some pottery scenes live on stage.
It was interesting. The beautiful thing, though, is that both our main cast, Molly, and our understudy, because we do have a single understudy dedicated show, they were so excited in their roles. We never asked this of them. They went out of their way to find a pottery class. Both of them are actually travel from London to be part of this show. So they found a pottery class out in London. They went and participated there. They explained the show to the teacher there, and they helped them figure out how best to make it look like they're doing stuff on stage. And it's actually that same pottery location that's going to donate a couple pieces that'll be seen throughout the show. So it was an interesting challenge, but it was one that I knew I wanted out the gate, and we are very fortunate to have actually secured a pottery wheel that will be on stage and will work.
I love it. Is it intimidating in any way, Andrew? Because this is such a well-known and beloved Hollywood film, to bring this to the stage.
If my cast was not doing such an absolute incredible job of telling this story on stage, and when I say I do mean Community on Stage's cast. They don't belong to me, but they have done such an astronomical job with the material. I'm not nervous at all. I am prepared to sit back and sob my eyes out with the rest of the audience, because there's just so many incredibly emotional moments that are being so incredibly handled.
All right. I mentioned that the curtain rises this Friday, a couple of days from now, 8 o'clock, Community on Stage. This is at the Cambridge Arts Theatre, Water Street South in Cambridge. How can we get tickets?
You can get them online at communityonstage.com/tickets, or they will be available at the door. But if you buy them online, you'll get to pick your seat in advance.
Looks like going to be a great show. Sounds like it's going to be a great show with this musical score. Can't wait to see it on stage in Cambridge. Thank you both for making time for the show this morning. And of course, as we say, break a leg starting on Friday night.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Sebastian Williams and Andrew Scott joining us on the show. Sebastian is the musical director, and Andrew, the director of Ghost, the musical. Yes, Oda May, Whoopi Goldberg, Molly, Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze, not obviously there, the late Patrick Swayze's role, but it comes to the stage as a musical at the Cambridge Arts Theatre, opening on Friday night. 8 o'clock Friday is the first show. Yes, 8 o'clock Friday, the 17th is the first show. And it runs through the following Sunday, the 25th of October. So just visit communityonstage.com/tickets. Get your tickets right there. There are some matinee performances, evening performances, and you can see Ghost the Musical on stage in Cambridge beginning Friday evening. An update from the 570 News Center is coming up, and then I will tell you this straight up. I still believe, I do, in those Blue Jays. How are you feeling ahead of tonight's big Game 3? Blue Jay Hunter joins us to talk some Blue Jays baseball next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The Whiz Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey and the Duke.
We are talking baseball every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. with the one, the only, Blue Jay Hunter. And never would I ever have believed 4 or 5 months ago that we would still be having these discussions, Ian Hunter, Blue Jay Hunter, on the 15th of October. But here we are.
Yeah, we're deep into October. We're almost into World Series territory, and the Jays are still alive. They are down. They're down 0-2 in this series, but they're not out. So they've definitely got an uphill battle here the next 3 games in Seattle. I think you've got to win 2 out of 3 in Seattle to push this game back to Toronto and potentially force a 6 or a 7 game series. So we'll see what happens. It's weird. It's almost like an opposite bizarro effect. The team that the Jays were in the ALDS has completely changed. Those bats have seemingly evaporated, and none of those guys are hitting in the ALCS. So combine that with a bit of a leaky bullpen, and that's why they're down 2-0 right now.
Blue Jays fans, I want to hear from you this morning, whether you're just on the bandwagon, you've been on it since 1977, I don't care. Hop on board. Talk to us about some Blue Jays baseball today. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. You summed it up perfectly there, Ian. And I was away last week. I know you and Larry had a chat about the Jays. But everything that was going so well versus the Yankees has completely abandoned the Blue Jays against the Mariners so far. Vladdy doesn't have a hit. Trey Savage gets knocked around. The bats have virtually gone silent. What happened?
Yeah, it is odd. So Vlad is 0 for 7 with 1 walk in his first 2 games. Kirk is 1 for 7. Barger's 0 for 6. Varsho is 0 for 7. George Springer and Nathan Lucas have 5 of the 8 hits by the Blue Jays in this series so far. So basically, you're only getting production from the top 2 guys in your order. I think it basically all boils down to that. I think Kevin Gausman and Trey Savage, they weren't lights out. Obviously, it was going to be hard for Savage to follow up what he did in Game 2 of the ALDS, striking out 11 guys in his playoff debut. But I thought he was okay in Game 2, and it was just the offense could not get going. And then the Mariners just started to chip away. I mean, I was there at Game 2, and it was just you never got the sense that the Jays were ever going to build momentum. I think because the Mariners bullpen has relatively been shut down in games 1 and 2. The Jays have gotten most of their runs off of Seattle Mariners starters, not the bullpen. So I think what you're seeing here is a much higher quality caliber of bullpen with the Mariners as opposed to the Yankees. And that's definitely coming through in this series. So I think if the Jays are going to have a chance here, not only do they have to get to the Mariners starters, they have to get a few off that bullpen too.
If it's one thing that really concerns me, it's how well the Mariners have pitched, especially game one where we didn't expect, right? That was the one that was ripe for the picking for the Toronto Blue Jays, because the Mariners just came off their 5-game marathon finish, 15 innings versus the Tigers. They should have had pitching issues, and instead they've had anything but.
I know, right? Yeah, you thought heading into that series, advantage Blue Jays, right? Because I believe Bryce Miller was going on short rest, on 3 days rest. The Mariners used anyone and everyone in that game 5 just to survive and win that series. Meanwhile, the Jays were done and dusted, relaxing in Toronto, sleeping in their own beds, and everything looked like the Blue Jays should have the advantage there. But yeah, for whatever reason, the bats couldn't seem to get it going. And the hallmark of the Mariners, I would say, these last few years has been their pitching, especially their starting pitching. They have a really good starting rotation. They have a pitcher-friendly ballpark. So if anything, I think that maybe plays into the Blue Jays' favor here, where they have a couple of fly ball pitchers like Max Scherzer, who's going to be starting in game 4. He's a guy who gives up a lot of fly balls and home runs. Maybe those just become loud outs at the warning track in Seattle. So we'll have to see what happens here. But yeah, I think it's what drove the Blue Jays all season long has been their offense, right? Their starting pitching has been mediocre overall. The bullpen, middle of the road, but offense is really what propelled them to win 94 games. And if they don't show up in the playoffs, I mean, they're just going to be eliminated as quickly as they got here.
You and I passed one another in the hallway yesterday to confirm we're on for this morning and we're going to have the chat. And you were a little less optimistic than I. But what you just talked about, Ian, is the reason that I remain optimistic. And I know if the offense goes cold, there's no, switch you can flip to turn it back on again after 2 games. But it is the offense that still has me believing today. Yes, it's been a difficult 2 games, but this offense, all it has to do is wake up, and it can wake up tonight, and all of a sudden we're right back in this thing.
Yeah, so I'll take the devil's advocate approach here, Mike. So 78 of 93 times teams that were up 2-0 have advanced. So that's 84% of the time. It has been done recently. The Phillies were up 2-0 in the 2023 NLCS. They lost that series. So it has been done. It's not impossible, but yeah, and we kind of saw that at the tail end of the regular season with the Blue Jays as well, too, right? Like that road trip through Kansas City and Tampa Bay, the bats were extremely quiet, and then they just came back to life when they got back home at the tail end of that Red Sox and the Rays series to finish off the regular season. So the potential is there, but if your main guys are 0 for 7, 0 for 12, I mean, George Springer, God love him, he's had a heck of a season, but he can't, it's not like the NBA, one guy can't just control the game. It's got to be everyone chipping in, and you just haven't seen that. Like, no, outside of Springer and Nathan Lucas, nobody else in this starting lineup has contributed in the ALCS.
Aren't we, though, kind of just playing with house money right now? Like, I know I've really enjoyed this team. I want its success. I'm full on as a fan right now, and that's why I'm still going to be behind them and believing. But really, if we take the high level view of this, coming into this playoff, first of all, we weren't sure the Jays were going to make it. Then it's like, are they going to hang on because they're starting to stumble down the stretch? Are they just going to get a wild card? No, they win the division. Then the narrative is, well, when's the last time the Jays won a playoff game, which hadn't happened. Now, so we've done that. True. We win the division series. I know you don't want to get this far and then not make it further, but kind of house money, no?
I kind of take it from the perspective of now you kind of shifted into high gear and you're 4 wins away from the World Series. Like, even if you get to the World Series and lose, I would say that's overall a successful season. But let's say hypothetically, Mike, the Jays are bounced in 4 or 5 games. I think that kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, right? Especially the way that the Blue Jays kind of trounced the Yankees in the ALDS. They were the best team in the American League in the regular season. So I think at this point, anything less than a World Series berth is going to be viewed as a bit of a disappointment. I know heading into the season, like we said, there was no expectations of them ever winning the division. I think a lot of people picked them to win the playoffs or to get into the playoffs. But now expectations change and shift. Like you get a little more hungrier. You're like, yeah, this team could do damage. It's just the fact that when you're the final four teams in baseball, they're really good teams. Like you don't fluke your way to get here. I know the Mariners kind of had a bit of a rocky first half, but they turned it on in the second half, and they have some tremendous pitching. So, yeah, I think ultimately if they do lose, I think there's some fans are going to say, oh, we really expected more from them, but others, like you said, maybe they are just saying, hey, this is house money. Nobody expected us to be here. It was at least we won a series. We won a playoff game. Vlad came alive. And they'll take that home with them, I guess.
I think your point is well taken on the bitter taste that might be left behind, especially after, because I think I shared with you, I know I talked about it on the air, a regular listener and friend who was sending me emails towards the end of the season about what a waste of money Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was. And I'm spitting stats at him. I'm like, come on. And then that series against the Yankees, I mean, if that could be Vlad's legacy, but it gets tarnished immediately if he keeps going 0-for in the championship series.
I know, right? Yeah, like he definitely solidified his status as a franchise guy in that series, but now you've got to take that over into the next series. Like winning one series is not enough. I think this core overall, we kind of expected them to be here at some point. So I think they really have to kind of get this thing going. And I don't know. I'm like going into this game, I think it is an uphill battle, but I think the players are kind of taking the mentality, just win today. Like worry about tomorrow. Just win this game. And I think today it's not a must win on paper for the Blue Jays tonight, but I think it really is, right? Like the complexion, a 2-1 versus a 3-0 series is much different. So I wouldn't be surprised if John Schneider is managing this game like it's Game 7 of the World Series. If Shane Bieber is not having a good outing like he did against the Yankees last week, I think he gets pulled out of the game. Maybe we see like high leverage relievers early in this game, and he's pulling some levers here and there because essentially they've got to win this game to have any chance of this series going deep, like 6 or 7 games.
John Schneider and how he manages this team. We'll get into that, especially when it comes to the pitching staff. And I want to know from you, is it World Series or bust? Otherwise, it's a blown season for the Blue Jays. Are you still on the bandwagon? We continue our conversation with Blue Jay Hunter here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Deep into October, and we're still talking baseball on this show with the one and only Blue Jay Hunter. Joins us Wednesday mornings at 11. The Jays are down, but they're not out. Down 2-0 to the Seattle Mariners. Game 3 tonight. Bieber going for the Blue Jays. Ian did bum me out a little bit with his statistic earlier that 84% of the time, the team that's up 2-0 in the series wins 100% of the time, if you'll forgive the Anchorman riff. But anyway, let's go to the phones. Hear from you, Preston Paul. Good morning.
Good morning, Ian. Mike, how are you today?
Good morning. We're doing well. Are you feeling optimistic about this Blue Jays team going into tonight or pessimistic?
Well, I'm trying to think optimistic, but it seems like the Jays slayed their dragon, the New York Yankees, and looked like they partied too hard. Sounds almost like our Brantford Red Sox when I pitched for them in 1990. We beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in our division final, and then we had to go to Kitchener to play the Panthers, and we got smoked there. All our import pitchers had to go back to college, so we didn't have anybody to pitch against them. But it just looks like that they not really into it.
Yeah, I think it's just they've run into a really good team. Like the Mariners, they had a long, dragged out ALDS against the Tigers, and especially in October, I know we can't measure this, Mike, but momentum is definitely a thing. So when you're coming off that high of knocking off the Tigers in 15 innings on Saturday morning, by the time that game got done, maybe they are feeling like they're playing with house money because most people maybe thought that the Mariners wouldn't get through. Whereas, maybe the Blue Jays, I don't know if they've underestimated the Mariners, but maybe they didn't prepare as much as they should have. So I think we're kind of seeing the effects of that now, perhaps.
One of the other things that I've thought about, and maybe this is why I'm rather I don't want to say indifferent, because I really do want the Blue Jays to win, but Seattle's hard to dislike. Maybe that's it. Paul talks about slaying the dragon. I loved beating the Yankees.
Yeah.
I loved it. But are you really going to hate on the Mariners if they finally have a taste of success?
No, well, and the Mariners and Jays, they are expansion brother teams, right? They both came into the league in 1977. I mean, aside from that series that they played in Toronto in 2022 at the end there's not really much of a rivalry between these two teams. We're going to see a ton of Jays fans in Jays gear in Seattle representing the Jays in these road games in Seattle. So there's not quite that amount of hatred, I guess, built up. Definitely between the Yankees because they're division rivals, but maybe that's what it is. There's just not that vigor or anger against the Mariners. The players obviously don't feel that, but I don't think the fan bases are too upset with each other.
All right. I did mention I would get into managerial decisions. And look, I know that there are teams with computers behind this stuff, but I don't understand managing pitchers anymore, Ian. I'm old school. I was a Roy Halladay guy for a lot of reasons, one of them being his penchant for pitching complete games. I didn't agree. I don't know why starting pitchers, I'm looking at you, Kevin Gausman, don't get a chance to work out of their own difficulties. Why not leave in the guy? Isn't he better than the bullpen?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Especially given what has happened in these last two games where, especially in game two, John Schneider goes to Louis Varland right away and he gives up a home run. Could you not have just let Savage try to work his way out of that? He more than likely probably doesn't give up a home run. I just think these decisions that Schneider's made, cases where he's taken Gausman out after 5 and taken Savage out after 4, they just haven't panned out. But I look over to the Dodgers and they had, Blake Snell pitch a gem 8 innings and Yamamoto pitched a complete game for the Dodgers last night. So I don't think it's a baseball thing. I think the managers tends to see, if these guys are giving up hard contact, they want to go to the bullpen. But it just goes to show, with Varland, I think he maybe has been overworked. He's pitched every single game in the playoffs for the Blue Jays this season. And although he has the velocity, he can hit triple digits, he tends to get hit pretty hard when it comes to home runs. So, yeah, I kind of see it from both sides. I think in the playoffs, there's a very short leash, and managers tend not to let guys work out of it unless they're seeing, this guy's completely dominant. And I don't think we could have said that of Savage and Gausman in games 1 and 2.
All right, let's squeeze in one more before we got to say goodbye. Joe, good morning.
Morning, Mike. Listen, before you went on the road, I was going to grovel, and I was not necessarily going to say that I was wrong, but I was going to say I stand corrected about Guerrero, okay? Well, we're back in the zeros again. And I'm not going to necessarily say that it's the worst contract in history, because that remains to be seen. It still could be, but at the moment, it remains to be seen. What I do think that everybody needs to get their head around is not to be greedy. Just take this for what it is, and if you would have said to any one of us, hey, you're going to take the Yankees out of the season in the playoffs, I would have taken that at the beginning of the season all day long. So when you say we're playing with house money, I tend to agree. And I'll just take the fact that they took out the Yankees, and I'll be happy with that.
All right, Joe. Appreciate that. And Joe was the one who was down on Vladdy, and I was trying to say, I don't know about this. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I felt great during the Yankees series. Look at Vladdy go.
Yeah.
Anyway, how quickly it changes.
I know it's wild. Like, I know there was a lot of outside observers saying, the Jays are celebrating as though they've won the World Series when they eliminated the Yankees. But I mean, that was a huge deal, right? Like, the Jays have never met. Think of all the years where it was always Yankees, Red Sox in the playoffs, and the Jays were always the little brother, finishing third or fourth. And this was the year where not only did the Jays, well, I guess they tied them but they beat them via the tiebreaker, but they eliminated them from the playoffs. I mean, you don't get that opportunity very often. But again, I think, okay, that's one notch in your belt. Now you got to get one more. So even if they lose this series to the Mariners, hopefully it's just a building block, whereas next year, okay, we've won the ALDS. Now we want to get to the World Series. That's the expectations that they've set for themselves.
Blue Jays, Mariners tonight, 570 News Radio, first pitch, 8 o'clock. Shane Bieber on the bump for the Blue Jays. I'm believing you're coming back next week no matter what. Let's get you back next week to talk about the World Series, okay?
Yep. They just got to win tonight.
They just got to win, baby.
Just got to win.
Just win. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Blue Jay Hunter joins us Wednesday mornings, 11 o'clock, to talk some Blue Jays baseball on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I might disagree with the song choice of Rob Deutschman for political R&D this morning, but because the law said...
The law won.
Did it, though?
Yeah, there was a
10-day suspension of pay.
We'll talk about that.
Okay,
that was a nothing.
That's what the law said,
10-day
suspension of pay.
It said a recusal and 10-day, but we'll get into that so that people know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. We are, it's the regular Wednesday morning segment with Rob Deutschman, former regional councillor, former mayor of North Dumfries, former candidate for office in the province.
A lot of formers there.
There are a lot of formers, but that's why, that's the expertise, that's the
Former
resume
guest.
you bring. No, this is current guest. Although you didn't bring your $5 donation that apparently you were supposed to bring today.
I see this.
My previous guests were bringing cash. So we want to talk about what happened at Cambridge Council last evening. And that's that. I could read that snort tone in your text or your message to me last night.
It was an exhaustion.
Okay.
I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, I just want to say I see you're in the record twice today.
Times two?
Yeah, there
Where
was
else?
the editorial, which is indirectly referenced by the lawyer. And then there was something about a wife complaining about her husband's toe ring.
Listen, you're not supposed to... The number one rule of this show, Rob Deutschman, is to not talk about my toe ring. I don't have a toe ring or any other rings. Well, except this one on my finger now that I'm married.
There's a lot of defense there, but anyway.
But it's true. I don't want people to be misunderstanding. At Cambridge Council, this is... Do you want to start with the op-ed that I wrote, the column that I wrote for the record?
Yeah,
there was a lot of smoke around this, Rob.
There was some what appears to be smoke, but I can see how the lawyers. Okay, first of all, we're talking about the Integrity Commissioner report that involved Councillor Adam Cooper, and his sharing of a meme that caused some concern in the community that resulted in at least 10 code of conduct complaints.
Yes.
There were more, but...
10 official.
Yeah, 10 official, because there's certain paperwork that has to be completed and an affidavit that has to be sworn in order for it to be an official complaint. And not to make that sound complicated, some may think it is, but the Integrity Commissioner works with complainants to make sure they're able to submit. And so others were given time. But anyway, out of that came 10, and then they start their investigation. So now you've got this pretty exhaustive situation going because you're talking about a Facebook posting. You've got a number of Facebook debates going on. And first rule of thumb, I tell all, I like to contact new people who've been newly elected And the first thing I tell them is, look, post to social media, don't argue on social media because you're never going to win that. Post what you want to say and then just don't read anything else because you're never going to win in those situations. But in Councillor Cooper's situation, he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on it by having an ongoing dialogue with people, and you're just never going to win in that situation. So the Integrity Commissioner investigated and came back with a report, and it was provided. Council indicated that they had wanted it on the 6th, but they received it on the 8th. They wanted it on the 6th, so it gave them time to issue the report with their normal package. Your article talked about the late Friday evening dump.
Which is what it was.
And it is a fair comment, a fair observation. They gave an explanation last night, but this is well past the Friday dump. And probably what they should have done was recognize that how it was going to be perceived, because they said that their normal agenda is usually posted the day of. And in this case, they posted it a few days earlier, which was the late Friday dump before a long weekend. And maybe they should have done a better job of communicating what happened there. So now we've got an Integrity Commissioner report. And it's interesting. The Integrity Commissioner has a lot of power. Okay, every municipality has a code of conduct. The code of conduct is different. There is no standardized code of conduct. The province may be looking into that, which they probably should, because I've seen some really poorly written ones, some very old ones. You'll recall the Wilmot situation where they all showed up at somebody's public meeting, and there was an issue of where there was a quorum and some people wouldn't leave. And I took a look at their code of conduct, which was pretty flimsy, was about 2 decades old and could use an upgrade. So the code of conduct determines your interactions and what you're supposed to do in the type, and you're supposed to obviously have read it before you come in and understand what it is you're doing and what's going on. So the Integrity Commissioner goes through and I've been through, I've acted for councillors. I've acted for councillors in 4 code of conduct complaint matters, and I advised another person on a code of conduct complaint matter. And I just want to say, coincidentally, they all involved Cambridge from probably like 7-8 years ago when all of this occurred. So I'm familiar with what goes on in Cambridge and with respect to that. And so after the Integrity Commissioner does their review, their findings are fact. Okay, you can't argue those facts anymore. You have ample opportunity to provide your side of the story. They investigate everything, and they are provided with the power to make findings of fact. And once they determine that, then they determine a penalty. So what happens is once they determine the penalty, that penalty is not binding on the councillor. It's up to council then to decide whether they want to accept. First of all, they accept the report. Then they have to decide whether they want to follow the findings or the penalty suggested by the Integrity Commissioner. And you may recall we had a situation, almost a similar situation, where Mayor Armstrong in Wilmot Township had reposted a meme about White Lives Matters, and it caused a lot of issues. And in that situation, he had issued an apology at some point prior to the investigation being completed. When the investigation was done, in that situation, the Integrity Commissioner made a recommendation of a better apology. So it came to mind because in discussing last night, as the Integrity Commissioner was presenting their findings to council, he was asked about what about an apology? And the Integrity Commissioner raised a good point. Said, look, if it's not a heartfelt apology, forcing someone to apologize is just not the same thing. And based on their review of the matter and the interaction that went on, the dialogue that was happening, they didn't feel that forcing an apology was appropriate in this situation. So they basically recommended a recusal by council of the conduct of the councillor, which is a motion that'll probably come back to council saying that they don't find the councillor's conduct to be appropriate and whatever wording in that effect. And then there was also the 10-day penalized withholding of your income, which is 10 days of income is, not a really significant penalty. So it was interesting because Councillor Devine suggested an alternative penalty, which I found very interesting.
Which I think actually was a really good idea, because he compared it to getting a speeding ticket, and the financial penalty is kind of that, you pay it and then it's over with. He's recommending sensitivity training, and I think that's a good idea.
Right. And what's interesting to me is there's a bit of irony with respect to this too. So Councillor Devine has been through it himself. If you recall, in his first term, there was an inappropriate comment made, and so he went through sensitivity training. And, good on him. He acknowledged that and said it was very helpful for him, and so suggested that in Councillor Cooper's. So what I found ironic there is that, there are those in the community that are opposed to a CTS site, but want to force treatment on people who are drug addicted. And so now we have a situation where Councillor Cooper is having treatment forced upon him, which is the sensitivity training. So I thought there's a little bit of irony there. But, the integrity commissioners, though, look at these are very professional. They act for 70 different municipalities. They've been through many hearings. They have a body of case law that they can refer to. So when they recommend a penalty, they're considering a lot of factors that go into that.
And they said the most egregious offenses get 90-day suspensions.
Which is what the maximum they're allowed is 90 days.
Right,
and
so 10 versus 90. It doesn't seem as though they thought this was the most, by any stretch, egregious example of a violation.
They said it was a violation. A violation's a violation.
Yes,
okay.
But 10 days versus 90.
The penalty was largely because Councillor Cooper is a first-term councillor. He was less than halfway into his term. So I think they looked at those issues, people who are less experienced, less knowledgeable, who are into politics and have a lot of, when you're involved in politics, you're walking on a lot of eggshells. And, but I think they were a bit generous with the 10 days there. And you
think it should have been more?
I think so. And I don't believe they thought that sensitivity training or forced treatment in this situation was going to be effective. I think that was probably their view. But, and you can see, council was 4-4 on, I wasn't sure where it was going to go because now council has to vote on the penalty. I had a situation years ago where one of the councillors was found to have violated the code. I was acting for him and I advised council on his behalf that they could, accept the report and not act on the recommendations, which in that case they did in Cambridge. So it was certainly an option to council to say, yeah, we acknowledge it. But I think in this situation, there was no apology. Even what was interesting was the integrity commissioner said, look, if you're going to comment tonight or last night at council meeting, the only thing you can comment on, which is correct, is the penalty. You can't relitigate the whole matter. And I was surprised when I heard initially that Councillor Cooper declared a conflict, which is appropriate, but he was going to be permitted to speak, which caught my ear, and I was quite surprised. But there was a change to the conflict of interest legislation that allows a councillor to, in their own defense or what have you, make some comment about the penalty. But Councillor Cooper went off on relitigating the whole matter.
It was a 14-minute speech.
Right. So what about all the other people that were offended? Did they get to come in and talk about how all of this impacted them? I was surprised that the chair did not stop him. Now, that might have been because in that situation, what was interesting was the mayor turned the chair over to the clerk. And the clerk was chairing the meeting. And I don't know if the clerk felt comfortable cutting off Councillor Cooper or what have you, but it was clear that he was going off on issues that were well beyond the penalty itself. And I was quite surprised. I'm going to temper my words, but I was very surprised with what I saw.
Okay, we'll get into more of why that surprises you, like it did, as we continue this morning. It's Political R&D. Rob Deutschman in studio on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Wednesday mornings, 11:30. Rob Deutschman joins us for some political R&D. We're breaking down what went down at Cambridge Council last evening when councillors recommended some sensitivity training for one of their own, Adam Cooper, the subject of an integrity commissioner's investigation and report. The report recommended a 10-day suspension of Councillor Cooper's pay. Instead, council says, you know what, sensitivity training will get the job done. Rob, you said you were very surprised at Adam Cooper's statement, lengthy statement, right, in his own defense.
Yeah, I know he was on your show that day talking about something else, and then you asked him about it, and he said, oh, I'll make it all clear tonight, or what have you. Well, everything he said in his statement, no doubt was raised with the integrity commissioner during the investigative process. So I'm sure nothing new was provided in that statement. And the integrity commissioner's findings are the findings. He violated the code of conduct, and that is the decision. Now the question is, what is the penalty? Whether he loves the people that he was having the arguments with on there. I mean, this is the problem. You hear a one-way statement, and you don't hear the reaction from people who are there. And you hear some people who support him clapping in the background. Sure, that's going to happen. But I'm sure those that were the subject of the complaint or felt were targeted by the meme that was posted. You know, it's interesting because I heard also this statement that he was trying to start a conversation. And I go back again to Mayor Armstrong. I phoned Les right after he had, because we were both mayors at the time, actually prior to. And so I called him because we knew each other well. And he said the same thing. And so I was trying to start a conversation. And I'm like, look, you know, there's a time and a place, and there's people to start that conversation who are known to be active maybe in the field and dealing with the issues. But I don't buy that trying to start a conversation type argument. I mean, that is totally out of line.
The easiest thing for Adam Cooper to have done would be to not have posted that meme, and then, of course, we wouldn't be in this. But I want to come back to...
No, the easiest thing, Mike, would have been just to apologize.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Don't even post it. Like, well,
sure, but you know what? Sometimes people will do things without thinking, and it happens.
Sure.
Okay, fine.
And then the apology,
now,
sure.
Sober second thought.
But that Integrity Commissioner's report, Rob, 19 pages long, which I read, in fairness to Councillor Cooper, it does not make any... It does not outline in any way the abuse that Councillor Cooper says he suffered as a result of this. So it may have been heard during but it's not in the report. You know, it's not in there.
You know, Mike, lots of people suffer abuse
of course
online. They do. Okay. And, you know, I'm sure the people who were the subject of the complaints also suffered abuse.
Absolutely.
And look, to be frank.
But so doesn't he get to talk about his?
Not during that.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was the wrong place for it.
Wrong place. Exactly. If he wants to post something on his Facebook to talk about it, sure, fine. But that debate last night was just to talk about the penalty. Look, I can tell you, I acted on behalf of a councillor who was the subject of a complaint via Councillor Cooper. And he had led that time when he was a private individual, a rally in front of City Hall on the night of a City Hall meeting, and had a large group of people. With a lot of distasteful things having been said and not having corrected any of that. So I'm sure the councillors then felt like they were being pounded on by people who were from the public at that meeting that night. So, you know, it's almost like history has not really been learned in that situation. And sometimes you just have to step back and recognize when what you've done, especially when you're a councillor, you have to be particularly sensitive because you're elected by the people to act for all of the people. And when you post a meme that clearly strikes at one segment of the population, you have to step back and say, okay, and acknowledge, yeah, I made a mistake. And that's why Councillor Devine suggested sensitivity training, because he was not seeing that sort of acknowledgement, contrition maybe, or acknowledgement of the harm that was caused by those actions. And the piling on, the doubling down, tripling down that Councillor Cooper engaged in when he continued to debate those people. Okay, so it goes all around. But that was the point last night, was to just look at the penalty, not to talk about all those other things.
It seems a little narrow, though, doesn't it?
It is narrow.
But
that's the point.
But all we get then as citizens is the Integrity Commissioner's report that says you did wrong,
right.
And we don't care what happened to you after you did wrong.
It's not a matter of not caring. The point is he has other avenues where he could post all that. All right. You and I are probably one of maybe 200 people that watched the council meeting. Okay. Sure. But he's got a Facebook site that has apparently over 800 people that he could post that on there. And there's 800 people, and some of them could share it, and it probably would reach several thousand. So the last night, the debate was just about that. I mean, those are the rules, Mike. You got to follow the rules. And Cambridge has allowed, in a couple of situations, I go back to their encampment discussion on the motion from Scott Hamilton about whether to evict during a extreme weather event. And the comments that were coming through from Councillor Cooper and others too went far afield of that, just talking about encampments in general, homeless people in general, and not dealing with the issue as whether we want a report from staff about whether we should evict or whether we can evict during or not evict during a extreme weather event.
Surely this isn't unique to Cambridge, though. I'm not sure that every council has the depth of expertise to stay completely on topic all the time. And depending how effective the chair is, or the mayor in that case, who knows how far off base it goes.
That's not a hard thing. I mean, during that meeting on the encampment thing, several delegations were shut down who were pro that got shut down. So you can't tell me that it's too difficult. That's not a difficult thing. I can see a difficult thing where you're wondering whether someone is saying something that's going to create a human rights violation or something like that. And we know we've had that situation.
Let's not go down that path,
I know,
Robert.
but those are difficult ones too. So this, though, on this issue, yeah, there's going to be some times when you're not sure. Absolutely, because you're new to doing that sort of thing, chairing a meeting and not wanting to offend anybody. But when you're saying, we're talking about the penalty and only about the penalty, and someone's clearly going off on all these other things, it's not now talking about the penalty anymore. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. That's common sense, Mike.
It was, I love common sense on this show, Rob. You know that. It was a very interesting night, and Cambridge continues to be the council that keeps on giving to shows like this.
Oh, yeah, right. You're very happy about it. Listen,
we've reached out to Eric Bolton. Hopefully he'll come on the show and talk. I'm going to have Councillor Cooper on. He extended that invitation yesterday when he said he wasn't ready to talk about it yet, but he'd come back on. We'll have the conversation here.
Yeah, I have no doubt Councillor Cooper would want to come on to talk about it for sure. I know Eric Bolton's partner was interviewed on CTV to talk about what they went through. So, yeah, it is a difficult situation. It's very unfortunate. But I get back to, when you're a councillor, you're elected in the community, people look up to you to adhere to this code of conduct, and you have to really watch yourself. And, doubling down or getting combative over your comments and statements, I don't think really helps anybody.
Always appreciate it. Don't forget to bring your money next time you come in.
Or I have to, rake your leaves onto the road?
The signs went up in my neighborhood. Don't get me started. Rob Deutschman, political R&D on the Mike Farwell Show. Thanks, Rob.
See you, Mike.
570 News Radio, Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is your Talkback Hour. Every day between noon and 1, we open the phone lines to hear directly from you about the issues of the day, or maybe something brand new you want to bring to our attention. You know how to reach us. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I got to say, I'm struggling. I am with the Cambridge Council Integrity Report, the process as it played out. Rob Deutschman, who joined us for political R&D in the last half hour, as he does every Wednesday morning at 11:30, and explaining how the rules are kind of narrow around the receipt of that Integrity Commissioner's report. All you can comment on is the penalty. So what ends up happening is you get this report that say this councillor did this thing wrong, and here's the penalty associated with it. Go ahead and discuss the penalty. But the entire thing points to, and it's fair, that the councillor did do something wrong. In this case, the councillor being Adam Cooper in Cambridge, in violation of the Code of Conduct. But the councillor doesn't get to share any of the impact on him or herself personally. And that's what Councillor Cooper was given some great latitude to do last night. And I don't know, do we not want to hear all sides of a story? Do we want to hear just that one side of the story? I'm sitting here today in conversation with you, admitting that I'm just struggling with this a little bit. And maybe those rules shouldn't be quite as narrow, because while the Integrity Commissioner may have been made aware of everything that happened since the posting of that meme, the public certainly wasn't aware of it. So how does the public become aware? We are certainly hoping to further that conversation on this show in the days ahead. So we will endeavor to do that and get the guests on to do that. But if you've been following the story, we've been covering it rather extensively here on the radio station. By all means, we'd love to hear from you. I also shared this morning some audio of that new Ontario advertising campaign that's being aired in Republican states down south, basically reminding those voters who likely would have been supportive of Donald Trump that tariffs end up hurting consumers in the country where the tariffs are being imposed. And of course, Ronald Reagan, who gave that famous speech that you've probably been hearing a lot of since this tariff war began, was very much into free markets, free trade. He and Brian Mulroney here in Canada, the cooperators behind the North American Free Trade Agreement back in the 1980s. And I suggested to you earlier today that I'm not sure it will resonate with the Republican voter of 2025, because the Republican voter of 1987, when Reagan gave that speech, is different than the Republican voter today, just like the Democrat of 1987 is different than the Democrat of 2025. And I'd say the same here in Canada. Today's conservative is not 1987's conservative, nor is today's liberal, et cetera, et cetera. But both Tony and Ian send me emails to mike@570news.com, and they point at even Republicans who are staunchly supportive of the party may be tiring of Donald Trump at this stage, not even a year into his second term in office. So maybe the advertising campaign does resonate. I don't know. But it's an Ontario government advertising campaign that Premier Ford was boasting about yesterday. And something else that we heard this morning, and I promise I will share with you in its entirety this hour. Did you hear about the time that Doug Ford says he stopped a shoplifter in the parking lot of a Home Depot and threatened to kick his ASS? It's a great story. Not everybody believes it, but it's a great story, and we'll share that with you in this hour as well. Let's get to the phones here on Talkback and hear where your mind is at. Kyle starts us off. Hello, Kyle.
I'm back.
You're back from your European vacation, which looked amazing.
19 days on the road. It was quite the journey. I saw over 100 family members, 4 different countries: Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, and Italy. And no, it was a lot of fun. And I drove most of it. And I got to say, European drivers, talk about no slow person in the left lane. You do your 130, which is the speed limit on the highway. And then if somebody comes to you, you pull over right away. I was like the most less stressed driving there. Roundabouts, everybody knew how to take it. Mike, I'm telling you, it's a world of difference. But I'm happy to be back. I'm sorry, I got to say, I think I brought the weather with me because when I was in Europe the whole time, it was cold. I come back and it's cold here. So I heard you guys had amazing weather when I was gone, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to tune into my favorite radio show throughout the week again. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate you coming back to us and finding the people in the world who do not drive like jack wagons. Glad to hear it. Gary is with us on Talkback. Farwell's Force member number 41. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, buddy. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm a little upset and, kind of saddened today. But, when I finished my shift at Transit last night and got in my truck at around 10 o'clock at night, and, of course, I've got 570 News on. And I'm, listening to, I'm like, oh, there's Mike, and then started to hear the score and all the fights and all that. You guys laid a beating on my team, I hear.
Yes, Gary, a Farwell's Force member from Guelph. The Rangers had their way with the Storm last night, 6-1.
What happened? I'm like, maybe I should call in, and I'm like, no. Oh, no, I won't call in. I'll just call in tomorrow and just say my 2 cents. But, man, that, listening to your highlights before I got out of the truck and went in the house to go to bed, that sounded like a crazy game. And the one fight, I guess, the knockout or something like that.
Weston Cameron of the Kitchener Rangers caught Carter Stevens of the Guelph Storm with a left hook. And let me tell you, you don't often see punches like that in a hockey fight, but Cameron caught Stevens, but good with that shot last night.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to win, sometimes you got to lose, but man, that was a bad beating. But anyway, it's nice to have you back, and I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with the family, and Go Jays go. I tell you, I turned off the TV the other night because I ran out of Kleenex watching that second game. But I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful they can at least hit that ball. That's all we need. So.
Sounds good, Gary. Appreciate it. I think the only thing we need when we're watching the Jays so far in this series is a pot of coffee. It hasn't exactly been the stuff to get excited about. But I'm with you. I've still got the faith in the Blue Jays. They're only down 2-0. A win tonight changes everything. Gary from Guelph, Farwell's Force member number 41. And speaking of Farwell's Force official members, I want to give a shout out to Jackie, Farwell's Force member number 57, who made a point of coming by the broadcast booth last night just to say hi. Big fan of the show, Jackie says she is. That's why she's an official member of Farwell's Force. A force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. Nice to meet you last night, Jackie. Thanks for coming by. Grant is with us now on Talkback. Good afternoon, Grant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mike.
What's on your mind today, Grant?
Well, I think Pridham is going to go even higher with goals.
I'm sure he will. He's only got 5 so far. Lots more room to get goals.
So he'll get 60.
He'll get 60? Whoa.
Well, he's like a racing car on the freeway.
Yes, he's got some speed, that's for sure.
I always buy stuff from Temu. I got a jar.
Hang on a second, Grant. What does buying stuff from Temu have to do with Jack Pridham?
Nothing.
Okay, you're just changing. Now you want to tell us about your shopping habits, eh?
I buy a lot of positive things from it, and it's a jar of positive pickle affirmations. So yours today is, your kindness is like a warm hug that everyone can feel.
I love to hear it. What a great positive message here on Talkback, which continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is a simple concept. Many issues of the day. And between noon and 1, we open up the phone lines to allow you open access to share your thoughts on the issues of the day or anything else that's going on in your world that you think we need to know about. Right back to the phones on Talkback for Paul. Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon. How you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Listen, I still haven't figured out this whole speed limit thing as, what times, what areas and whatnot. I'll give you an example. Last night, around about 9:30, as I was leaving the Cambridge City Council meeting, I was heading home back into Preston. And as I'm driving up, I think it's Water Street there, I'm not sure, Park Hill and Water Dundas, or whichever street it is, maybe Ainsley at that point. Coming up there, I'm coming up the hill, and at the top of the hill is GCI, the Collegiate Institute, a high school where the speed limit is 40 kilometers an hour. Now, while I was sitting at the stoplight next to the Waterloo Regional Police Services vehicle, I accelerated away from the light, and I'm coming up to the hill, and maybe I was doing just a touch over the speed limit, maybe 55 to 60 instead of 30. But as I hit the top of the hill, I figured, well, it's a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone here, so I better slow down.
Wait. I thought you just said you were doing 55 or 60. I'm confused.
Yeah, when I got to the 40, I figured I'd better slow down.
Oh, I see.
To the speed limit. So I did that. After all, like I said, there's a cop right beside me, and he can just continue right on, same speed, right on through the school zone. I looked. I didn't see any signs saying it's only during a certain time. But if he can drive at that speed, I'm not sure. I think he could have been one of the ones that was standing on guard at Cambridge City Hall to keep all the riffraff out. I'm not sure. But it did go a little bit late. A few of us were hanging around a little late after the city council meeting. Maybe he was in a bit of a hurry. Or shouldn't he lead by example and do the 40 kilometers an hour through that school zone? Wouldn't that seem like a reasonable thing?
Sorry, I just woke up from the beginning of your story. What you're asking me, Paul?
I'm doing 40.
Yeah, so should police officers not set a good example by driving the letter of the speed limit all day, every day?
Correct.
Yes. The answer is yes. Couldn't you have just asked that question in like 6 seconds and we saved me falling asleep?
Yeah, and you asked me, well, why would you ask that? I'm just saying, lead by example.
I get you.
If it's 40 kilometers an hour all day, all night, right through the night, I realize there's no school children out there.
Yes.
Okay.
You realize too, Paul, that everybody who is human is imperfect. So it could have just been, a little slip by that particular police officer.
Well, like I said, I hit the brakes and slowed right down to 40.
You did, but you're perfect. You're perfect, though.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, okay, you're not. But in this case, you were, and the police officer was not. I got you.
I wanted to see what would happen.
All right. I appreciate the call, Paul. I inadvertently, without any ill intention, brought up speed cameras before. I'm not trying to go down that path. I will say this about Paul's story. I love to give him a hard time about how long his stories are, to get around to the question of whether or not I think or we think police officers should follow the speed limit to the kilometer all day, every day. I will say that in principle, yes, I do believe in leading by example. So absolutely. And I would submit to you that I suspect that these conversations happen within the walls of our police building, saying, hey, when we're out there, we are constantly under supervision. The watchful eyes of the public are on us at all times because we are very visible. You can't really hide from being a police officer when you're driving a police cruiser. So I'm sure it's always their intention, and sometimes, being the humans that they are, they may err in that regard. Can I share this, if you don't mind too much? And I'm sorry to make it about me, but I sometimes feel very similarly, whereby when I go out, a lot of the time now, I run into people that are fans of the show, which I absolutely love. It's so great because it's so rare that people, throw rotten tomatoes at me or anything like that. It's really a wonderful experience, and I appreciate you so very much because you're very supportive of the work that we're doing here, and that means a lot to me. And I always want to make sure that when we do run into each other on the street, at the coffee shop, in the mall, wherever we are, that I greet you in a way that you would hope to be greeted. And last night, as true as the day is long, I was trying like the Dickens to get from the media room at the auditorium to the press box. I stopped for a 50-50 ticket. I had to go check in on something at the box office. And it's just, when you come from the media room now, it goes through the entire arena. And there were so many of you that I ran into, which was great. But I didn't have the most time. And so much like that police officer that Paul saw last night in their imperfect moment, I would like to just apologize to every one of you. I know Mike was one. I'm forgetting the last fella's name. Connor? It's not Connor. I'm sorry. Dave was another. I was a little bit on the rude side. I was in a hurry, and I was feeling the pressure of being late. I wanted to get to my press box and get ready for the game, and I did not treat you the way you deserved to be treated. I'm sorry for that. And Paul, that's my long way of responding again. The police officer might not have been having the best moment, but I promise you it's their intention to drive the kilometer to the speed limit every time they're on the road. Just like I want to make sure we have a nice interaction, and I'm not a jerk to you. Sometimes, though. Last night was one of those times. Mary, quite contrary. Farwell's Force member number 1. Good afternoon.
Woo-wee.
Woo-wee.
No, I'm not contrary.
I know, not today.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I can be.
Yes, sometimes.
Anyway, I'm not with you on the fact that the police try and do the right speed limit. They pass you all the time.
See, you're being contrary now. See?
Yeah, well, sure.
Okay.
Makes the world go round. My question is, when they're caught on the camera, does that police officer have to pay the ticket?
I don't know the answer to that,
Well,
Mary.
find it out. Find it out, darling.
Okay, Mary.
I'm sure they don't.
I'm on the... I know. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was riding with my son-in-law from Port Elgin.
I love Port Elgin, one of my favorite places on earth.
At night, and that's a few years ago, it doesn't matter. He was stopped by a policeman going 50 miles an hour over.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, his brother-in-law is a policeman. Now, whether there was any connection, but he was just sent on his way.
Oh, he knew the secret handshake or something.
Some damn thing.
Mary.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
I want to have the secret handshake.
Just be nice.
I'm always nice.
All right, Mary. All right.
Oh, come on with your coming on, Mr. Michael.
And she even drops a Michael in at the end. Police officers sometimes will exercise discretion and say, hey, raise your right foot, slow down next time, I won't give you a ticket. Speed cameras, they have zero discretion. And the question gets asked all the time, well, if they're a police officer, who pays their ticket? I don't know, but we'll find out, okay? We'll check into that for you. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you have not yet heard the latest from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, make yourself comfortable, because this is about as good a story as they get. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, ditches his security detail to go shopping on his own. And when he does it, he catches a shoplifter in the act. Here is what Premier Ford, the story that he told the Empire Club at a speech yesterday. And believe it or not, some people don't even believe this story. It's our Premier, Doug Ford. He would not lie to us, would he?
A couple months ago, I pull in, I escape from my detail at 8 o'clock in the morning before they come, and it ticks them off. So I hop in my pickup, and I want to go to Home Depot. It was on a Saturday, and I pull up, and I wanted to get some plants. Actually, it was a weekend before the Prime Minister came. I wanted to get plants for the cottage, so I loaded up, and I pulled up right by the nursery. I think the majority have been to Home Depot, so I pull right up, I load up all the plants, and I'm ready to pull out, and here's this guy with a backpack and, a bag. And he's walking out, and the store manager's yelling at him, come back, and the security guard's there. And I said, well, go get him. We aren't allowed to go get him. And so he went around the side of where all the plants and outside the parking lot. So I was in my car, I said, screw this, I'm going after this guy. So, and by this time, my heart's beating, I'm ticked off. So I go racing behind, no one can see, and I pull up behind him and jump out of the car. I said, buddy, what's in your bag? Nothing's in my bag. I said, buddy, I'm going to kick your ass all over the parking lot. Show me what's in your bag. And I did. I couldn't help myself. And so I said, buddy, come over here. And nothing's in my bag. And so we start. Now, by this time, the store manager comes, and he's on fire. He's cursing and swearing. I guess I threw in a couple colorful language, too. And so he's emptying out his bag. And all of a sudden, so he's saying, nothing's here. I said, how about your other bag? It's because he dropped it and heard a cling. And so he went in there and he pulled out one of those saw blades that you open up. Yeah. And you can use it as a saw blade. And the store manager said, that's what he stole. And then, we start saying da-da-da-da to the guy. And then I said, keep emptying out the bag. He pulls out some cutters, tin snips. And by this time, I'm in a pretty rage. I'm just in a full-out rage on this guy. And I said, buddy, you stole those too. And he goes, I swear to God, I didn't steal them. He said, look at the rust on them. I looked at them, they were rusty. I said, okay, those are yours, but the rest? And then I went on to tell him if I ever see him in the parking lot, he's going to get a beating like he's never got before.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford writing laws stopping crime at Home Depot. Ditched the security detail and went to Home Depot all by himself and then stopped a crime in progress. Believe it or not, some people say they don't even believe that story. Brian is with us on Talkback today. Good afternoon, Brian.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. Just wanted to make a comment for that the lady that called about the police officer not getting tickets.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a retired police officer and still in the program a little bit, and they do receive tickets, just so you know.
But who pays
when
them?
You go through a photo radar, you're paying for your ticket.
You're paying, okay.
Unless you have a reason to show why you were speeding through that zone.
That's the question. I figured the tickets would be issued. We just weren't sure who paid them.
Yeah, it's paid by the individual officer. It's checked out by the HR, and they find out who's driving, and they give you the ticket.
Perfect.
So you get the whole shebang. And as far as going speeding through certain zones, officers do respond to calls, and sometimes they might not be lights and siren, but they might want to get somewhere a little quicker than just getting somewhere for the sake of getting somewhere. So that person was going maybe 60 in the 40 zone, may have been going to a call at his neighbor's house. So.
Brian,
a couple things, that's all.
Appreciate the insight. Thanks very much.
No problem. You take care.
You too. You know, I'm just going to say this, and I know it's not a popular opinion, but truly, honest to goodness, I feel sorry for police officers and really anybody else who is readily identifiable, because everything they do is under scrutiny all the time. Oh, you were driving 60 in a 40? I was driving 40. Why weren't you driving 40? Oh, you did this, you did that, because we can identify who you were. I remember this. Here's a quick little story in a similar vein. So I went to St. Jerome's High School, Kitchener, as you know, private school or Catholic boys' school, and a uniform. We had a uniform to wear. Well, St. David's also had a uniform to wear, and we were similar. We were blue and gray, blue shirt, gray pants with a navy sweater. And St. David's, I think they had white shirts, but they definitely had gray pants, and they had like a burgundy sweater. But the pants were the same. That's the point in this. And so we were at some event somewhere, and some St. David's student got up and caused a bit of a ruckus. And our St. Jerome's people were accused of being the bad people in it because, I recognized them by the gray pants that they wear, the gray dress pants from the uniform. Not all uniforms were the same. Well, I mean, the pants were the same, but different students. Different schools, and our school took the blame for the ruckus at the public event because of the student was recognized by the pants he was wearing. But we were all wearing the same pants. It's good Catholic boys back in the day. Just wear the same thing to school every single day. My point is, when you are visible and everybody knows who you work for, maybe what we should just do is always follow the rules. At all times, don't ever break a rule. Somebody's going to catch you. Francis, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Yes, number 36 and 36 plus will hope to have a word too also. I was really had a real bad rant last Friday for your co-host, Larry, I believe it is. You know, some people that always have to argue and keep on arguing. I think they shouldn't have any, personally, more than a minute and a hang up there. But the other one that really upset me, they called Larry a moron. And I thought, you know, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything. I thought that was really really stupid. It's my opinion. And like I said, oh my God, how would he ever put up with it? And Sherry, he would like to have a word.
Yeah. As to the Cambridge issue, just briefly, in my last job before I became ill and couldn't work anymore, I worked for the government. And we got a 4-page addendum telling us of all the things we could not say, okay? So I think sensitivity training in every field of work is important, you know, and that, like Fran said, if you have nothing good to say nothing, you know. That's it. That's all we have.
Okay.
God bless.
Thank you. In unison from Francis and Sherry in Listowel, a God bless for us this afternoon. So I thought of, because Francis just brought up, and a couple of you did yesterday, and I received a message about it while I was away. Whatever it was that went down on Friday afternoon with poor Larry Fedoruk, I got to go back. I didn't get a chance this morning because I was at the hockey game last night, and this morning I had to catch up on yesterday's Cambridge Council meeting. So I was very busy getting ready for the show, watching the meeting of Cambridge Council online. I didn't get a chance to go back and listen to whatever it was that happened with Larry, but Francis seems quite put off by it as well. I'll just remind you again, two things. First of all, it comes with the territory. We expect this sort of thing. It happens from time to time. And I know that Larry can handle it, and he's a pro, and it's probably happened before, and it's likely going to happen again. I would wish, and I will continue to wish, that we don't make these things personal. We can disagree. We can absolutely disagree, but we don't have to call people names because we disagree or say they're not qualified to do the job that they do. Whatever. Don't be upset that we have the job we have just because you don't like the things we say while we're doing that job. So I will go back and listen to this. The other thing attached to that is Larry is coming back for me next week. I know, I'm almost like a senator around here these days. I promise these were long planned days, and then that's it for the rest of the year. We're going to be together right through till Christmas time. So just bear with us, and Larry's a good guy to step in. Even after whatever happened last Friday, he's willing to step back up and sit in here with you and have some conversations for a couple of days towards the end of next week. On Sherry's point about the sensitivity training, I have to say, and I'll share this clip with you again from Ward 2 councillor in Cambridge, Mike Devine, who brought forward the motion at last night's Cambridge Council meeting to say, I understand that the Integrity Commissioner is recommending a financial penalty for Adam Cooper for violating the council's code of conduct. But Councillor Devine felt like maybe a different sanction was appropriate.
What we have here is a situation, we can take the pound of flesh, but that pound of flesh is not going to help anybody. It is not going to help anyone. What we need to do is change the attitude and the thought process. I don't think handing out a speeding ticket is going to help anybody, because that's what this penalty is, in my way of thinking, is a speeding ticket. We need to change the attitude. We need to give training, and I believe that will help. I really, really, really believe that will help.
Mike Devine, the councillor for Ward 2 in Cambridge, also made reference to when he had taken sensitivity training because he ran afoul of council's code of conduct, and it really helped. And I kind of like his thinking in this regard. I mean, you could dock somebody's pay for 10 days. Okay. So you get a little bit annoyed by that, and you're missing out on 10 days of pay, and then life just goes on. Whereas in this case, it's maybe helping you, like it helped Councillor Devine, gain a better understanding of the impact of your actions through this sensitivity training. I think that might be a pretty decent way. Good job by you. Bravo, Cambridge Council, in the decision that you made moving forward from what has been a pretty messy situation over the posting of that meme to Facebook way back in February. Talkback continues here on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We open the phone lines every day between noon and 1 so we can hear directly from you on the Talkback Hour. And Rudy is on the phone with us today. Good afternoon, Rudy.
Good day, Mike. On Friday, when that conversation going on with Larry Fedoruk, and I like Larry. I like listening to his stuff when you're not there. And Larry handled it very well. The other guy, he was really taking it personal. You know, he was saying, I'm surprised, they keep you on this job. And Larry was trying to nicely shut him down, He was doing it nicely, but the other guy just kept on till it was the end of the conversation. But, when you said about the sensitivity training that Mike Devine did, well, he said it really helped him, and that. Well, maybe he just said that it helped him. I don't know. Some people say that afterwards to make the people feel better that he did the training. That's what I like to say about that. I got one more quick thing to say, and it's about e-bikes. I seen a commercial on Instagram for a place in the Cambridge Mall that sells e-bikes, but they also sell this electric motorcycle and they said you don't need registration, you don't need license or insurance. This thing does 130 clicks.
Come on.
Yes, it looks like a cafe-style motorcycle, and the guy said this thing does 130 clicks, and it's got a range of 200 kilometers.
Incredible. Rudy, thanks for the call. Listen, this came up yesterday when we had Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths on the show. Staff Griffiths is the head of the Traffic Services Unit. These things, and I'm just encompassing all of the lithium-ion battery-operated vehicles into one big thing. What we have created, thanks to the technology and the complete lack of regulation, is a world whereby people are taking advantage, in my humble opinion, as to what Rudy's just talking about, of not needing a driver's license, not needing to get insurance, but yet having these ways of getting around and traveling at unsafe speeds, getting into all kinds of trouble, creating havoc on the roads. What happens if you get hit or you hit somebody else? It's just all so messy. These things go way too fast. We have to regulate. Period. I've said it before. I will say it again. If it is not under your own power, so you're not pedaling it with your hands or your arms or your legs, then it is something that needs to be licensed. Period. Because we've got this big, fat, wide gray area in here where all of these quote-unquote vehicles are all over the roads, all over the trails, all over the sidewalks, and they're just creating havoc all over the place. We don't want to walk anymore. We don't want to pedal a bicycle anymore. We don't want to jog. Apparently, we don't want to take transit, but we want to get on one of these little personal devices and whip around town completely free of any rules and regulations. It is wrong. We got to get this thing reined in, but quick. Brenda is on Talkback. Good afternoon, Brenda.
Good afternoon. With regard to that guy that called in on Friday, I was listening.
Everybody's fired up about Friday still.
Oh, it was unbelievable. The guy was saying we don't have freedom of speech under our Canadian Constitution, and Larry said we do, which we do have.
Absolutely. You and Larry are right. That guy was wrong.
That guy said he should be able to say whatever he wants to say under the freedom of speech. Well, no, there's a fine line. You cannot debase anybody about their race, religion, what they believe in, what they don't believe in. I mean, this guy sounded like a white supremacist to me.
Oh, my goodness.
He sounded that bad because he said if I can't say whatever I want to say, and then we don't have freedom of speech. Well, there's a fine line.
Well, I hear where you're coming from, Brenda. What I would remind you is that freedom of speech or expression does not mean freedom from consequence. If you want to sit in your living room all by your lonesome and say anything, you go right ahead and do that. If you say that thing in a public area where others are around to hear it, there may be consequences for what you say. I mean, that's a pretty grand overview of it all, but that's where I would land on this. Pat, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Did the councillor get in trouble for the meme he posted or for what it said?
Well, isn't that the same thing?
I don't know. I'm assuming it's like he wouldn't have got in trouble if he posted a meme that wasn't deemed to be offensive.
Oh, well, then didn't you just answer your own question?
Yeah. So
okay.
Are we? The reason why I'm asking and inquiring is like in the UK, you have people that are getting arrested for social media posts.
You keep telling me about this, Pat. I got it. What's your source? I got to look this up. You keep telling me about this. What's your source?
The source is the news.
Well, which I know, I get good one, but which source? Is it the Guardian?
The Guardian.
Okay, the Guardian reported on somebody being arrested for a post on social media.
Well, it's not somebody. It's 12,000 people a year.
Okay, I'm going to look this up. I need, because I haven't. You've mentioned it a couple of times. I haven't taken a chance to look it up yet.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Problem. I don't want to get to a place where Canadians will get, police shows up at your house for social media posts. I don't think Canada should certainly be headed in that direction.
Are you worried that we are headed in that direction?
I think I'm certainly worried with what's the bill that's
C8.
Yes, C8.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that bill certainly has the possibility to put us down that path, and so I'm certainly concerned about that. And again, my view is that just because something is offensive doesn't mean that we shouldn't debate and discuss it. We should have more conversation.
We should have more conversation, and we will continue to have conversation. But remember, there are degrees, I guess, of offensiveness, as Brenda was alluding to a moment ago, when it gets into hate and discrimination, etc. We talked about Bill C8 on the show earlier today with Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. He joins us every Wednesday morning at 10 and does some great work, a reporter-owned and operated newsroom out of Ottawa. And Tom talked about C8 and how it's at committee right now, going through the ringer, and he suspects it will never see the light of day because these are pieces of legislation that start in one place, they go through committee, they get rung through that ringer, and they come out the other side looking far different. So I wouldn't worry just yet, but it's definitely something that we're all keeping eyes and ears on. And I got to get out of here. Make way for Rob Snow. Now you know coming up. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.